Well, if we're gonna find any ghosts, we better split up.
You're listening to Never Split Up, a horror movie podcast.
There are certain rules that one must abide by in order to successfully survive a horror movie.
Hello, everyone, and welcome back to the Never Split Up podcast. My name's Nolan. Along, as always, is Anthony, and today we have a biggie. I'm going to let Anthony do the honors and introduce this episode. What's up, Ant?
How's it going? I'm so excited for tonight because we are getting back into the world of Scream, and we are celebrating the 25th anniversary of Scream 3.
Yes. We were just discussing, so I believe this episode is coming out on the 5th, February 5th.
Yes.
You had just told me that it was released on February 4th, 25 years ago. Man, are we old?
Yes, we are old. So,
and now,
right around
okay.
that release date.
Okay, I'm a little foggy. I know we've talked about this, but it was a while ago. Yeah. Did you see this like when it was released? I mean, we were only like 8 or 9 years old, but what's your experience with Scream 3 like on its release? Were you already a Scream fan?
So I was caught up with Scream and Scream 2 by the time Scream 3 came out in theaters. And my mom is the best mom, and she tried to take me like multiple times opening weekend to see it, but it was sold out.
Oh, really?
Time. So we had to wait till it like came on the VHS at Hollywood Video, and she rented it the first day it came out on video.
She didn't take you back like the next week or whatever?
Yeah, no, we tried, and then so she just rented it when it first came out on VHS, so... Good fond experience for Scream 3.
Okay, so you watched it at home, like with her and stuff with your family. Okay, that's cool. But you were caught up. You were already hyped for the movie.
Yes. Oh yeah.
Okay. Cool. Yeah, 25 years. Oh my gosh. Yeah. Crazy. And now with the news of Scream 7, I mean, this franchise just keeps rolling. It's going back to Sidney Prescott, which this original trilogy highlights, and. Mm-hmm. Yeah, we're probably going to cover some Scream 7 stuff as that gets closer, similar to how we covered Scream 6. So look out for that. I know you all love your Scream content, so we're really eager to get this episode out. So let's do it. Before we get into it, let's have we have a couple announcements, I believe. You want to go over kind of our last episode and what we have in store in the future next week?
Yeah, for sure. So, guys, actually, the day we're recording this episode, the Lodge episode is our newest episode. So make sure you check that out. I listened back to it, and I thought that Nolan and I had a great conversation, and that's a great horror movie for the winter. So make sure you guys check out that episode, check out the movie. I thought it was a great discussion. And next week, after our Scream 3 episode, we are celebrating the season of love. And we are covering the Australian horror film, The Loved Ones. So check out for that episode. And we actually have a special guest, horror content creator, Oriana Nichelle. Make sure she's really big on TikTok and she's on Instagram. And she told us that she's going to be having a YouTube channel soon. So follow her on social media. Check out her videos. It was a blast and a pleasure having her. I thought she meshed well with our vibe, and I had a really good time talking about that movie too, so I can't wait for you guys to check that episode out for Valentine's Day. That'll be released on February 12th, so a week from, when this one's released. I can't wait for you guys to check that out.
Yeah, like you just said, we already recorded that episode. I thought it went great, so stay tuned for that. I'm excited for this recording, and The Lodge was a great episode, so we are just kind of in our groove right now, and we also are going to wrap up the month, I believe. We decided that we are going to do The Black Coat's Daughter to wrap up February. So that was something that a lot of people voted for when we did our poll. So we haven't forgot about all those votes. We want to cover that, and that's going to be fun. That's another winter movie. So yeah, we got some great content coming out, and I'm really excited. So all right, let's get into Scream 3 without further ado.
Ooh.
Let's cover the synopsis. You can talk about that and the cast and crew. I know you are eager to discuss them.
All right. Are you ready to get into Scream 3?
Yes.
Let's do it.
Let's do
Okay.
it.
All right, I'll give you the IMDb synopsis, but we all know it's Scream, but I just like reading a little blurb for all of the audience members. So, while Sydney and her friends visit the Hollywood set of Stab 3, the third film based on the Woodsboro murders, another Ghostface killer rises to terrorize them. I love how it says like her and her friends are just going to have fun on the set. But it was directed by the legend, the late great Wes Craven. It was written by Aaron Kruger and produced by Kevin Williamson. And it stars the lovely Nev Campbell, the Never Split Up podcast anointed ultimate final girl for the audience vote. David Arquette, Courtney Cox, Liev Schreiber. You got Roger L. Jackson back doing his thing. You have Patrick Dempsey, who has been in the news as of lately, but not, maybe not for the reason some Scream fans want him to be.
The other
Scott
Mark.
Foley, the other Mark. Scott Foley, horror legend Lance Henriksen, horror legend producer and director Roger Corman, Dion Richmond. We have comedy gold Parker Posey in this movie, just the scene stealer of Scream 3. It's Scream, so it's always a stat cast. Jenny McCarthy, Emily Mortimer, who's in a couple independent horror movies. Yeah, Heather Matarazzo. You have a little cameo from Jamie Kennedy and a cameo from a big person for Nolan, Carrie Fisher in Scream 3. Yep. So yeah, I mean, Scream always comes to play with the cast members, so this is no exception. And yeah, it came out February 4th, 2000, so we are literally celebrating the 25th anniversary of this trilogy capper. So I can let's get into it. Let's get into some Scream.
Yes. Before we do, though, if you are new here, we have covered obviously the first two movies. So if you want to pause this episode, go back and listen to those. We've also covered other Scream-related content. So we have tackled. We did a full ranking of Ghostface rankings. So if you want a little context into what to expect for this episode, you can go back and listen to our Ghostface ranking, and we feel very differently about this movie. Again, if you're new here, context, Anthony is Scream obsessed. It's his favorite franchise. He just loves everything Scream. I'm not so much. I think it's a good franchise. I'm not as obsessed as Anthony, so he's always going to have kind of like a higher... He's going to put these movies in higher regard than me in general. Like I feel like even Ant's least favorite Scream movie is kind of towards the top of how I feel about my favorite Scream movies. So
I would agree.
Yeah, this is going to be a fun episode because we do have different opinions, but if you do want to go back and listen to those episodes, it'll kind of give you maybe a little context of what to expect here. Or if you want to just go in blind, just continue listening. But yes. So do you want to go first, your overall thoughts, or do you want me to go first? I feel like you should go first.
Yeah, I'll go first. I always say I'm so amped to talk about Scream, but when it gets time to get down into it, I'm
overwhelmed.
Yeah, because it's so overwhelming to talk about this franchise for me. But I'm gonna try my best right now.
It's almost like that weird conundrum where you know too much about a topic.
Yeah.
So it's too much in your head. It's all scrambled, and you don't know what to say.
How do I get it all together to express myself? But I am in love with Scream 3. Just for context, I mean, Scream 2, and Scream 3 came out within a 4-year time frame. So they're very contained. I always look at it's like the original trilogy, and it's all a big franchise, but it's the original trilogy and then the other 3. It's not like, you know what I mean? There's a big space between Scream 3 and Scream 4. So the original trilogy to me is very contained. So that's all. I mean, the original trilogy are my favorite installments of the entire franchise. It's just, there's no contest. So yeah, I am obsessed with Scream 3. I think that it is what the final chapter in a trilogy should do. It goes back to the OG, but it doesn't harp on it too much with too many homages. It just tells you something that you think was already known, but it just enhances it and it delves deeper into it. I think that Nev Campbell gives her best performance and this is from someone who Scream 2 is his favorite Scream movie. I think Nev Campbell gives her best performance in Scream 3. I think she has a lot of physicality and she expresses emotion, and I feel her heartbreak, and I also feel her frustration and her fight in this movie so much. It just proves that she's the ultimate final girl of this movie. I think that it's so funny because, I mean, I would say that if you did a wide consensus and did a poll, I think that the results would show that the best, everyone's favorite, that the top Scream movies are Scream and Scream 2. And then when you get to Scream 3, Scream 4, Scream 5, and Scream 6, it's kind of all, scrambled for who likes what installment the most. The first two are the highest regard, and the other two, like everyone has, the other four, I guess everyone has their favorites. And I think this one used to be the black sheep, but I like to see now how it's picking up steam, and it's getting like appreciation over the last 25 years, and people are coming around to it a lot more than when it was first released. Even if this is your least favorite Scream movie, it's better than 90% of the slasher movies. So again, every Scream movie is a good movie. But I think that it gets flack for, I don't know, I see people thinking that it's like goofy, and I'm just like, I don't see it. I think that just because you have Parker Posey as a scene stealer and comedic gold with Courtney Cox, I almost think that we needed that levity, because everything with Sydney is so dark and depressing, and almost to me like the darkest of the trilogy, her sequences in this movie. And the elements and the themes that they're dealing with, not only slashing and kills, but it's about like sexual abuse and Hollywood torture, and it gets pretty dark. So I don't understand when people say it's like the goofiest, because I think those light moments are needed, and I think that Scream has always been a horror comedy, so I think the comedy elements are so needed in this, and I don't think they overshadow the horror of the movie at all. I think it's a great balance. It's almost like, to me, the most balanced of the franchise. I think Scream 1 and Scream 2 have way less comedy than Scream 3, but I think that Scream 4, 5, and 6 go into more like campy, scary movie moments way more than Scream 3. So I never understood that critique. And I didn't even know that Scream 3 was like the black sheep until like social media came out. I thought they were all like bangers. But The Killer, we're not gonna, I mean, this movie's 25 years old, but we'll talk about The Killer when we get into the review. The Killer is my third favorite killer of the franchise. I think that the way it's really contained between the killer and Sydney, like one-on-one in the finale, is so special to me, especially when you find out the motive and the reveal of it all. It has some of my favorite set pieces of the entire franchise. The one ding I'll give it, even though it doesn't bother me, because I don't think Scream ever relies on just the gore. I think it's more about the phone call, the chase, the set piece, the build up to the kill. This movie doesn't have a lot of gore, but it's also because this movie was made right after Columbine, and there was kind of like a big controversy, so they actually had to take out sequences of gore instead of leave it in the movie. So again, I see people saying it's like the least bloody of the franchise, but they kind of really didn't have an option besides to go that route.
Oh, that's debatable.
Yeah, I mean, well, the studio told the makers.
Yeah.
Like, no, it's not like, I'm sure Wes probably fought back a lot.
I do wish they leaned into like violence in movies though, as like a theme more. But
they definitely were ahead of their time. Just a lot of people say like Scream 4 is ahead of its time, which I 100% agree. I think it aged so well. Scream 3 is ahead of its time with Hollywood abuse and the whole. It really calls out. The casting couch and everything, a movement that came out 15 to 16 years later after the movie. This movie was literally throwing it in front of our face right there. And kudos to us for doing that, especially knowing the producers of these first four movies. So I think that Scream 3 is also ahead of its time. And I think that I think that's a lot of horror franchises, they get a lot of flack for it's always in the same location, whether you talk about, Halloween or Friday the 13th or whatever. Scream, a lot of people think like, oh, it's always in Woodsboro, but the original trilogy, each installment is in a different setting. The original is Woodsboro, the second one's the college campus, East Windsor, and then the Scream 3 is in Hollywood. So right there, like none of the original trilogy takes place in the same spot. And I think that Scream 3 utilizes Hollywood so well. You're actually on movie sets, you're with cast members, you're literally in the making of a movie. I felt the Hollywood vibes, whereas, in Scream 6, I didn't really feel like they took advantage of New York City as much as they should have. I felt it 100% in Scream 3. It has my favorite finale of the entire franchise. It's my baby. It meshes so well. I think it really has a full circle moment with the original trilogy, and I'm happy that this is how the franchise ended for its decade to 11-year break. I'm in love with it. I watch it nonstop, and I love it. Gales, bangs and all. I love this movie so much. I'm in love with it. The goofiest part of this movie, we'll get to that sequence, is definitely like the fax machine mansion explosion of it all. But again, to me, I'm just like, I've seen way more hokier and goofy shit in Scream 4, 5, and 6. But I can't wait to get into the specifics, but I am absolutely obsessed with Scream 3. I love it. Love it so much. I'm in love with it. Let's hear you, because I know that if you guys have watched our franchise ranking, Nolan has this lower tier Scream for him.
Yeah, I disagree. So that's the Never Split Up podcast. We'll see you later. That was a lot. That was a lot to unpack. I'm obviously not going to get to everything there. We'll probably get to it as we get through the review. My overall thoughts, I will touch on some things you said. I do disagree with a lot you said. I do agree with some you said. I'll start with the positive. Before I get into it, though, I do want to have like a minor disclaimer, because we're going to have fun on this episode. And we're going to get into it.
Scream, we're going to have fun.
I think the fundamental difference of why we feel differently, because we could talk about like, a character moment or, oh, the director shouldn't have done this. That's all, like, that's art, right? I mean, we can disagree on that. Where I think we fundamentally disagree, and I'm saying this with a big caveat because I'm not like, I'm just a guy who loves movies, so it's just my opinion. I think technically this is a pretty big fall off from Scream 1 and 2. I don't think this is a technically well-made movie, whereas you obviously disagree. I mean, you love this movie and you champion this movie, so I'm not going to go too much into the technical in this review. We're just going to have fun and talk about kind of like how we feel about it. But I just wanted to say that because I'm coming at it from a different place, I feel like, than you. So I want to start with the positives, though, with that out of the way. There are a few positives in this movie. It's not a complete dumpster fire.
Oh, come on. It's not a
dumpster
fire at all.
No, it's bottom tier for me. I wouldn't consider it, again, I wouldn't consider it a good movie. Like you say, every Scream movie is good. I wouldn't consider it good just because of that technical. I don't know. I don't know.
Okay.
It's fun. It's not good, if that makes sense to me, personally. Cindy fucking Prescott. I mean, I wish she was in the movie more. But that's not a knock, because when she is in the movie, she's just phenomenal. Her character arc and growth and her acting. There are times in this movie, except when she's with Gail and Dewey, like with other characters, where she's like carrying the scene. I mean, that's how good she is. And it's really not even knock on the other characters, although I do have issues with some of them. Okay. She's just phenomenal. So that's a pro. We could talk about how she kind of disappears for a while in this movie, but when she's in it, she's awesome. Great. The set pieces, you mentioned the set pieces. I do like a few of these set pieces, particularly the Stab 3 house. My favorite part. The final house, John Milton's house at the end. That really cool house, how it has like secret corridors, and it's fun for a slasher. I'm not going to deny that's a cool set piece. This movie, we've talked about this off air. I don't know if I've really talked about this in other episodes, but I love when Scream feels different from its other entries, and I do feel like 3 feels very different from 1 and 2. That's kind of why I knock 2 a lot, is it has a lot of the same tone as Scream 1. I know the set pieces or the setting is different, but I feel they're very similar in that regard. Scream 3 feels different, so they took swings with the tone and the feel, so I appreciate that. Not everything worked, but I appreciate it. So those are the pros. Those are the main pros. I'm sure there's other little pros, but I don't want to go too long before getting into it. Okay, the cons. I'll just go through some because it's very long. Overall, I think this, and I know you highlighted this. I also know the backstory of how apparently the script was leaked while they were filming and they wanted to change up the ending and stuff. I think it's a pretty jumbled script. I know they were like literally rewriting it during filming, but I think maybe they should have like halted filming and like taken a breath, because the script it's all over the place. I feel like overall this movie has a lot of style, but not a lot of substance. And its characters, especially the side characters that are not returning characters, are not as memorable as other entries. You talk about, what's his name? Tyson Fox. Angelina Tyler is barely in it for reasons we'll get into. And I forgot about this guy completely until I was Googling. Tom Prince is his name. He's like the Dewey. The Dewey character. So, I mean, I barely remember them. They are very forgettable, which is a bummer, because that's kind of what Scream relies on, at least for me, is like how they handle their characters, and that's what Wes is so good at. I feel like he didn't do a fantastic job with that group.
Really?
You said Jennifer Jolie, she's definitely the most memorable out of the newcomers for sure. I mean, just because she has so many independent scenes with Gale, it's fun. Those scenes are fun. The voice emulator, I'm sorry, I just still think it's the laziest writing I've ever seen.
What?
It's just contrived to make you feel like you don't know what's going on. It doesn't make sense. This is actually something that my wife brought up when we did our rewatch, and I never thought about, because she feels this similar to me, but what she said stuck with me. If they would have just kept it to the phone calls and not in person, I feel like it would have went over much better for me and maybe for others. But the fact that he's using it like on the other side of a door, Cotton Weary and stuff, like his girlfriend, like it's so bad and it's so stupid. I just can't get around to it. I know people are like, oh, with AI and stuff, it's ahead of its time. But no, that technology still doesn't exist. We won't even get into how he got the voices and stuff, because that's obviously not explained.
You could explain it if you had to, because of who he is and whose voices he has.
You can't though, because
Yes, you can.
You can't explain why he can do it in person and you can't hear his real voice behind the voice changer. Like, it's weird. It's weird. It's a weird thing to add. I feel like it's lazy writing. You could say that about any
Ghostface movie for any of the Scream movies then, because Ghostface's voice is different than any real person.
Yeah.
So, like, you can say that about any of the movies, really.
Yeah, but he doesn't really... I don't know. I see your point, but I don't, because the Ghostface voice is a voice modifier, whereas this is like an emulator, where it's emulating someone else's voice. It's completely different. So I don't really accept that, if that makes sense. But anyway,
I just say he has an extra loud microphone in his costume. Like I love it. I love the voice changer.
I just think it's lazy. I think it's lazy writing. I think they could have been more clever with drawing up how to create suspense and not know who it is. And I think it's just dumb. I just can't get on board with it. I think that this movie suffers from not having Randy. I think they maybe made a mistake killing Randy off. I think having a character like Randy in this movie would have really helped it. And I think it's missing. I mean, you get the videotape of him and it just feels like they did it because they needed to do it. But I feel like even if we didn't have Randy, even if we had his sister or whatever kind of replace him, kind of similar to the newer movies, I think it would have helped.
Eesh.
But the movie gets, especially in the first act, it gets very like straightforward, like detective work and stuff. And I feel like we could have used a character like Randy to remind us that we're in a Scream movie, if that makes sense. And Roman, I'll get to Roman finally.
Are we talking?
What's that?
Are we talking? Like, can we just talk?
Well,
about
I'm still doing my overall thoughts.
Okay, all right.
Just bear with me. Just bear with me.
Are you going to give it away though? That's what I'm saying. Like the Roman of it all. Should we going for it now?
Oh, I mean, I guess.
It's a 25-year-old movie.
Yeah. I don't think anyone's listening to this that hasn't seen Scream 3. Right. But yeah,
that's what I was asking.
Yeah. Roman obviously is Ghostface. I can't get on board with it. I think I don't like how he's a solo Ghostface. I really think it would have been beneficial if, and I know originally the Angelina Tyler character was supposed to be a second Ghostface, and it's pretty evident in some of these shots throughout the movie. There's some questionable things that happen. You're like, how the hell did Roman do that by himself? So I hate that he never has any scenes with Sydney until the very end of the movie. And every time I watch that scene where he reveals himself and the look on Sydney's face of just like,
oh, it's so good.
Confusion and what the fuck? Like, that's my look. Like, I emulate her look every time because I'm just like, this is like who is this guy? Like, he's like making this grand entrance. He's never even met her before. So I have a big problem with that. I just think his performance is really fucking bad. Again, I alluded to it before. I think Sydney carries the scenes of them two together completely. He's like wimpy. It's not believable that he killed all of these characters, especially Cotton Weary, by himself. I don't like him as an actor, I guess, his portrayal, because it's just, it doesn't work for me. And I want to get more into the nitty gritty of everything I just said, like his motivation and stuff. But I want to save stuff for when we get into it. But again, this is a fun movie for me. I have a fun enough time. I just don't think it's very. There's a lot of things that they misstepped on, and I don't think it's technically great like some of the other entries. But I will have fun with this. I'm not going to shit all over it. And yeah, you want to respond before we get into the movie? How do you want to tackle
I'll respond a little bit. I don't want to, because I want to actually get into it. I'll get to most of the Roman stuff when we get into the movie, but I will just
that's what I figured.
He is my third favorite killer, so I can feel like.
And guys, again,
opposite.
We talked about this on our Ghostface rankings. We did go in depth on why we like or dislike Roman. So if you want to get some more context, check that out. Yeah.
Yeah, I'll fully save it for, like, specifically the finale, but he's my third favorite Ghostface killer, just in response to, like, you don't believe that he can, like, take down some of these people. I mean, we're talking about a franchise where, 5-foot Emma Roberts Jill is killing people, Amber's killing Dewey, Quinn's killing Gail's bodyguard in 6, so I think, like, Roman is the least of my concerns about not being capable on that side of things.
On the surface, but I feel like the scenes in particular, the way he dispatches some of these characters, I don't know. I
actually think he's one of, like, the most villainous and strong Ghostface of them all, so it's fascinating to me. And
strong? I mean, I would not call that guy.
He's so accomplished, like, just like Kirby says in Scream 6, kudos to him, solo Ghostface. He did a lot himself. So I agree with Kirby 100%. There's a lot to unpack what you said too, so I'm kind of like, my mind's kind of like blowing right now. I am someone who's a defender of the voice changer. Again, I don't want to talk about it too much. We kind of already had our back and forth on that, but I thought it was a clever subversion of expectations and something to spice things up when you're getting to a part 3. Whether like it fully works for you or not, or you find it believable or not, again, we are talking about a slasher movie. I can make it make sense for me, and I thought it's fun, and I actually hope that's one of the things I want them to bring back for Scream 7. So I could feel completely different about and that. No. I really hope that
they wouldn't be so bold. I don't think.
I don't know. I have a feeling that Dewey might be coming back in that aspect to taunt Gail and Sydney on a phone call.
You think Kevin Williamson is going to do that? I
kind of think that's how they get Dewey back into the fold and have David Arquette be part of it. And I really want that actually.
I hope they. Well, we can get. We're going to do an episode.
We'll do
7.
but.
Yeah,
but just to show the contrast of like I'm for it and you're not, so you get two different perspectives there.
I also don't think that they should bring Dewey back at all for Scream 7. I think that would
as someone who loves the OG trio the most, I don't want him in a flashback. The only way I want him back is in a voice, because I do think that his death needed to mean something. Like, you did it, stick with it. But that's for sure.
I agree.
I agree in that aspect.
Yeah, I agree. Yeah.
But going back to this, I think the script is so funny. I think the script is so smart because of how they're tackling making a movie within a movie in a Scream movie. So I'm just like, Wes, you're so smart. I love you so much. I think that the set pieces of Woodsboro on the stab set look more realistic than what we're supposed to believe is the real Stumacher house in Scream 5. I actually think it looks more like the actual Stumacher house in the set.
That's funny.
I would always laugh at that. Just because
I've never looked at it that way. I've always looked at it as a set, because it is a set.
Exactly, but if you if you compare it, because it's actually a set in Scream 5, but it's supposed to be real. So it just cracks me up, and like they did a better job with the fake set in Scream 3 than the actual one in 5. But let's get into it, because you said a lot, but I feel like it'll naturally come out. Just overall, obviously, Nolan and I feel completely different about Scream 3. I think it's amazing. Like I've always said, if I could tie the OG trilogy, I would. And it's specifically because I know I'm someone who I think Sydney is Scream. She's always been Scream, but specifically the original trilogy, she is, what the whole story is about. We'll get into it. And I think it's fascinating that everyone says like Gail is the most complex character. I think she's one of the most complex final girls. But to me, the most complex character in Scream is someone who's never really had any screen time. It's Sydney's mom. And we find out how complex of a character she actually is in Scream 3. So it's really good stuff to get into. So let's get into it. Let's get into the opening. What do you think about the only Scream sequel that has a returning character getting killed off. That's another something different. They killed Randy. Oh, that's another thing. I think that it was ballsy for them to kill Randy in Scream 2. So I think that they made the right choice. Like, and I love how what's his name, Tyson in Scream 3, he is like, they're rip off Randy. He's like, yeah, they're getting back at us. They're maybe someone killing someone because they're getting back at us for killing Randy instead, because Randy died in stab 2. So West was called out for killing him off, and Kevin, but I think it was a smart move. But yeah, what do you think about the returning character getting killed off in a Scream movie? This is the only Scream movie that has that happen.
In general, I don't mind it. I do wish that he survived for one more movie, though, because I do wish we got a Cotton Weary where we knew he was innocent the whole time, but he's still a morally gray character. I feel like he was such an interesting character, and especially with the themes tackled in Scream 3 with Hollywood and everything, I feel like he would have fit right into this script if they kept him a little bit longer, on how he just wants fame and fortune, and you know, he gets the call from the random number and he thinks it's like some fangirl, and fuck his girlfriend. He just wants he just wants the, So I think he was a great character, and even in that short scene, like in the car and stuff, and so when good. He dies in the very next scene, I think he does a great job. So I do wish we got a full movie of like the morally gray Cotton Weary, where we know he was innocent of his crimes, and then maybe you could kill him off in future installments.
That's fascinating, because obviously we find out in Scream, the original, that he didn't kill Sydney's mom, and he was prominent in Scream 2 the most out of the entire franchise, but he was a red herring in Scream 2.
He was a red herring, and he really wasn't featured. Like, I wanted him really like at the forefront in Scream 3, and I feel like he would have fit this script, like with Hollywood, and I don't know. I don't know, because it is a decent opening. So really I don't hate the opening.
I think it's underrated,
itself.
Actually.
Yeah, like I don't like the voice changer, but the actual like action and suspense is pretty decent. So I do enjoy it, but I love his character, so I wanted more. So it's just it hurts,
I actually agree with you that I think that Cotton Weary is a very underrated Scream character. A lot of people don't talk about him enough, and I think it would have been cool to see him, be in more scenes with Sydney and maybe make it to the second act of Scream 3.
Yeah, maybe make it a little bit longer, not survive the whole movie, but yeah.
But I also appreciate the balls to say you have 2 movies in a row where we're killing off a returning character, where you can't say the same for that in the later sequels. I actually really enjoy this opening, and it's funny, Lee of Strawberry's done interviews, he's like, it wasn't really a good career decision for me to let them kill me off. I could have been in, Scream 4, 5, 6. But I really enjoy this opening. I like that you see him in like the traffic of Hollywood, trying to rush to get back to Christine. I love that we're getting back again. Like Nolan knows, like I love my rock in horror movies, and we have fucking Creed, What If playing in the opening scene. I'm like jamming, love it. But I think it's really creepy when Ghostface is like, I'm staring at her right now in the shower, and I love how poor Christine, I think she really goes through it, because she doesn't get a phone call. She's not the one she's the opening victim. She doesn't get the phone call. Cotton does. So by the time he gets back to the house and it's the whole voice changer thing, she thinks it's Cotton, banging on the door, going crazy, but it's really Ghostface. So she's really thrown for a loop in this opening, because she thinks that her boyfriend is just turned into a killer. I love how she's like, not you and your stab games again. My Cotton, what kind of weird sex shit are you into? Like, that's how you do it, your trauma boy. Like, what are you doing over there? When she said that, I'm like, ooh, what kind of games do you play? But I think it's actually pretty heartbreaking when she thinks she's being chased by Cotton. And I also think, I didn't say this, but I think Ghostface's like specific lines in Scream 3 are pretty underrated. I know like Scream 4 gets a lot of like credit for having like dark lines, and a lot of the other sequels do, but I love when he's like banging on the door, and as Cotton, he's like, I'm trying to tell you how fun it's going to be to rip your insides out, and I open the fucking door. I'm like, oh, I love that line when he's banging on the door. I love the chase. I love that Cotton's in all white, because while we don't have much blood in this movie, that white suit is going to get all bloodied up. I think it's really sad when she's trying to defend herself from Cotton, and then he's like telling her to look behind you, and that's how she gets just caught off guard. She's actually pretty tough, but she doesn't know she's defending herself against the wrong person. So I thought that's where the voice changer to me and all of it is clever. And then I really love how after Christina's killed, Ghostface is pretty much saying, "Tell me where Sydney is, or you'll die." And for me, I'm like, why does Ghostface even think that Cotton Weary would know where Sydney is? I would like, why wouldn't he go right to Dewey? But obviously, with the Roman connection, I mean, Cotton is a cameo. He's filmed a cameo in Stab 3, so Roman literally directed him. So that's the closest person to Roman who had a relationship with Sydney, whether it's good or bad. And I think if Roman went directly to Dewey, everyone knows Dewey's not giving up Sydney's location, no matter. You can kill Dewey 10 times in a row. He's never going to give it up.
He's also Dewey, and he has her number saved in his phone, so he's not willingly giving it up, but he probably would have gotten it out of him.
Cotton, he has the potential to that gray area to, maybe under pressure.
Oh, yeah, he would sell her out, yeah.
But I love that even
That's why I love Cotton. He's morally gray, like I said, yeah.
Yeah, even if he didn't have her location, he kind of just ignored that. So I think I actually see the respect that Cotton and Sydney had after she gave him, like, he's the hero, he's the one you want to interview at the end of Scream 2. He kind of, they respect each other. So he didn't even acknowledge that part of Sydney. He didn't even lie. He could have lied and said, Sydney is blah, blah, blah. But he didn't, and he just got killed. And I do love, even though Scream 2 is my favorite title drop is Scream 3. After he gets stabbed in the face, so just the way it pops up on the screen, I absolutely love it. So yeah, I think that people talk about like Scream and Scream 2 being the best opening. Some of the later sequels go like super over the top fun, but I think Scream 3 is kind of like just not talked about. But I think it's an underrated, like you said, suspenseful, cool opening. It's my third favorite opening in the franchise.
Yeah, I don't know where I would rank it, but I would rank it probably somewhere in the middle. I think I think it's fine. I don't think it's perfect. I don't, it's not on the same level. The original Scream will always.
Well, obvious. Yeah, I mean that's just.
Yeah. But no, I mean, some people disagree and have other openings, but like Scream 2, some people that's their favorite.
I'm obsessed.
I think we did talk about this on a previous episode. Maybe it was on the Scream 2 episode.
Can't remember.
We went into openings, but yeah, I just think that Cotton dying at the very beginning kind of wipes the slate a little too clean too quickly. Because then Sydney's not relevant until halfway through the movie. We have Dewey and Gale. Well, she's not. She's
not with the group.
Yeah, let me rephrase.
Yeah,
she's not in Hollywood. She's on her own. Right. So we know that Ghostface is trying to find her from this scene. So Ghostface is not there, like he doesn't know where she is. So she's safe for now, I should say.
Right.
I don't know. I just feel like including Cotton in, especially in this first act, without Sydney so much in Hollywood, would have made an excellent dynamic with Gale and Dewey and these other characters, and even Roman. Maybe Roman could have had a little bit more screen time talking to Cotton because they work together. I don't know. I just feel like it was a mistake having him as the opening kill, but it was a statement. It was a statement. I'm sure people in theaters were like, "Oh my god, they just killed Cotton," because he is a character in the first two movies, although not prominent. By this point in the year 2000, people who love Scream are talking about Cotton, and it's a good actor who's playing him. So. Yeah, I don't knock them for making the statement that early, but I just wish he kind of was highlighted maybe throughout the first act until maybe Sydney gets there, and then they could have killed him off.
Okay, so you respect the opening. You just wish that he didn't die at that point of the film.
Anytime they do something like this where they take a swing, I always have to respect it, even if I don't personally agree. Yeah, because it's also very easy to look at it like 25 years later in hindsight and nitpick everything. So It was a bold swing, That's all.
First, I actually appreciate it, but it sounds like you probably wanted him to get killed more in like the runtime, the same area as like Randy got killed off in Scream 2, like the same spot, like he got killed off like halfway through Scream 2, pretty much. And it kind of sounds like you kind of wanted him Cotton to make it like
maybe around the same time that Sydney kind of enters the fold. It would have been I think cool, but
okay. So opening out of the way,
he could have been the first survivor of the opening before we get the later sequels where we have a survivor. He could have been the first one to kind of really survive. That would have been a cool twist for Cotton, but
it took until Scream 5 to have a surviving all
right, so let's move on. What did you want to tackle next?
So right after, again guys, I love the staple of every Wes Craven Scream movie. The first scene after the opening cuts to our final girl, and that's when we're introduced to Sydney in her state in Scream 3, like Nolan said, she is secluded. She's in hiding. She's in full-on hiding after the events of Scream 2, which is why I love Mickey and Mrs. Loomis so much, because they fucked her up royally at the end of Scream 2. And after that, she's like, I'm going to hiding. I need to be away. So I do love the setting of that. She has a nice, cute dog, Cherokee. And shout out, you guys will hear a couple episodes, either in the past weeks or next week, where we talk about animal deaths. Scream has never killed an animal. It's another reason why I fucking love this franchise so much. But yeah, she has like a nice, really house hidden in like the hills, in the mountains. And
yeah, what the hell? Where'd she get that? Did she get like compensation from Woodsboro?
Well, I mean, if you've seen her house in Scream 1, her dad's got some money.
Yeah, I guess so.
But I do like how I think it's very fitting. She does change. She changes her name professionally because we find out she's a crisis counselor, and I also think that's naturally like the great step for Sidney Prescott to be trying to deal with her trauma by helping other people. I thought that was really smart. So yeah, she says she's Laura or whatever. I can't remember her fake name, but she says she's Laura because she's Sidney fucking Prescott. That's who she is. But I really like that's where we're introduced to Sydney before she finds out about Cotton being killed. And we're introduced to Gale Weathers, who is doing her Gale Weathers stuff, and then we're introduced, she's doing like a seminar. And her fucking great bangs. It's so funny, the backstory about that fucking David Arquette. I fucking love him. He's a goofball. But we are introduced to Mark Kincaid, played by Patrick Dempsey, diva Patrick Dempsey. So he gets into the fold and he shows up and he consults with Gale and he says, Cotton's dead and we found this picture. Do you know who it is? And we see that it's young Maureen Prescott. So that's the whole start of the mystery, with there's pictures being left at the death scenes of Maureen, Sydney's mom. So then, Gale gets brought in on the investigation. We find out that Dewey is in Hollywood and he's also a consultant on the set of Stab 3, and he's like a bodyguard to Parker Posey, playing Jennifer Jolie, who is playing Gale Weathers in Stab 3. It's just, to me, it's all comedy gold. So the first meeting between Gale and Dewey is fun, cute, sassy. Mark Kincaid's immediately a red herring once he's introduced into this movie. When Sydney finds out that Cotton has been killed, I love her reaction. Again, she like has the dog food in her hand, then she drops it, and she's visibly, again, Nev's acting, like the way she can just emote and have tears just like populate in her eyes. I don't know, she's so good. We even see Sydney's dad too for a quick conversation. He's asking her to come back to Woodsboro, and he's like, no one knows you're here. She's like, that's the point. Like, psychos can't kill what they can't find. So I like the whole, Scream always does well, in my opinion, especially the original trilogy, with the reintroduction of our characters, our trio, and like getting introduced to the new crew. We're introduced to everyone who's playing characters in the Stab franchise, so it's all fun, tongue-in-cheek, very meta before meta was a thing. Scream's always been meta, but the term really came to fruition in Scream 4. But yeah, I think the reintroduction to everybody and our new characters is pretty solid. What about you?
I highlighted this before, how this was a pro. I really like how they introduce Sydney in this movie, and I love where she's at. It's cool because she's obviously not okay in her own personal life. She's right. Like you said, she's in hiding. She's still dealing with the ramifications of the fact that she was hunted twice, and who knows if she's going to get hunted again. I mean, one time is enough, but when it happens a second time, it could become a pattern. So I love that she hasn't obviously fully dealt with, and because this movie came out so quickly, a couple years later, they're not that much older, so not a lot of time has passed in the universe. But I also love the other side of it, of how she's taken her story and is helping others, because she's a survivor and she's an expert, final girl, and that she's helping others. So I think that's great. And also, she looks gorgeous in this movie. This might be my favorite looking Nev Campbell.
That's it. Okay, cool. I like that.
3. Yeah, it's between 2 and 3, but I think in 3 there's something about that haircut and stuff that she has. And yeah, she looks good in this movie.
We love Nev Campbell here.
Yeah, that's a highlight for me.
Nolan and I have both met Nev Campbell, by the way, so we've seen her in person, and she does not disappoint. She's
radiant. Yes, yeah. she's wonderful. Yeah,
she's sweet too.
She is. Yeah. But yeah, Sydney's great. Gale and Dewey. It's the old trope, Scream 2, they get together.
Will they, won't they? Right.
The sequel, they're not together. So we're going to be dealing with that the whole movie. But I think it's handled pretty well throughout the movie. Like you said, Wes is so good at kind of weaving in those relationships, and Gail is like obviously completely on guard from the beginning with Jennifer Jolie's character who's playing her. You know, they clash, they butt heads, and the fact that Dewey is he like with her? Are they like boyfriend girlfriend? They're
it's
not.
It's kind of like she's playing it up, Jennifer Jolie, for sure. Okay. She wants to make Gail jealous, but they're not together. They're not together. No.
So how do you feel? I want to ask you this and pick your brain. What do you feel about Dewey going to Hollywood and being a consultant for this movie? Because I kind of conceptualized it as, maybe he's together with Jennifer Jolie and he's just doing that like his boyfriend duties. I know, like, you know, he wasn't on the force anymore in Woodsboro, but that's a big leap. That's a big jump to go from being a, you know, cop in Woodsboro to going to Hollywood and being a consultant / bodyguard. You know, it's a big stretch. So how do you feel about that?
I actually think it's smart because I think he wanted to be an advisor on the set of Stab 3, especially there's a line in the movie where he finds out that someone took Sid's file, and I think he wants to be close to the set because he wants to make sure that everything's going smooth and nothing breaks out and nothing comes, like, the Sydney of it all is safe. So he's keeping an eye on the set, making sure that nothing breaks out because of it. And again, it's even the other two, like, all of Scream is like based in California, so I don't know how far Woodsboro is away from Hollywood, you know, in relation. But I feel like Woodsboro to me is like Northern California, like far away. So I think it's smart that he's an advisor on set because he wants to keep himself close enough to the action and make sure that he can keep Sid safe. And yeah, I actually appreciate it. I would not have wanted him to be with Jennifer Jolie because it's Dewey and Gale. Come on, it's Dewey and Gale.
I think you're giving Dewey a little too much credit. I don't know if he could have predicted that murders were going to start or stuff was going to start happening for Stab 3 because that never really correlated before. If anything, I would think that he would be with Sydney, like near her.
Well, he's
just in case.
He's also he's also in talks with Kincaid when the file gets stolen. So he's part of the investigation too, but I think he was literally asked to be an advisor on set, like just in general.
No, yeah, I know, yeah, he was. Yeah.
I think it's cool. I think it's something different because we already saw him come to in the first one he looks out for Sid, but he still has his own sisters. So like it's protect Tatum and Sydney. The second one he does go to be with Sydney. So I almost think that it would have been a little redundant to do the same thing in 3. Just send Sid's in hiding, keep her at bay, but if he needs to go help her, he will. So I think it's cool. I think it's something different. I think Dewey's at is almost like some of his most like full on Dewey mode in Scream 3, like the lovable Dewey in Scream 3 out of the whole franchise.
Yeah, no, because I wanted to ask you how you felt about it, kind of like in relation to his character, if it's believable. Because initially I had some issues with it, but the more I thought about it, Scream 1, the events of Scream 1 and 2 did define him so much, not only like as a human being, that, you know, when he's... And was it confirmed that he was let go? That he was fired?
In Scream 3?
Yeah.
It's not confirmed. No,
it's not confirmed. Someone mentions it though, right? Like that he's like not on the force anymore. But so if that's the case, and for whatever reason or another he leaves Woodsboro, it does kind of make sense that his character would gravitate towards Stab because it is the retelling of those events, and that's like kind of what has defined him as an adult, if you will, and his professional career. That's kind of all he has. He doesn't really have an identity outside, unfortunately, because he's a goofball. He's Deputy Dewey. You know, he doesn't really have anything outside of being the hero in those stories. So it would make sense for a guy like that to kind of cling on to that in a way, and kind of, obviously Sydney didn't want him near her. You know, I'm not saying that he should have been with her, but I just think it's interesting that he kind of went there. But it does make sense for his character the more I think about it.
Yeah, I love how when we get introduced to like the movie actors playing the actors in the movie, I love how Detective Wallace, producer John Milton, because Roman's like being a little crybaby bitching that like the movie might be shut down.
Yeah.
I love how Milton's like to Detective Wallace, he's like, hey, any relation between our movie and The Killing? He's like, he's playing a character in a movie who was stabbed, and he was stabbed. I just fucking think that's so funny. So it's in relation to the movie.
His
But it
line
sets
delivery
up,
is great. Yeah,
it's
yeah.
so funny. I cry, I laugh every time. So fucking funny. And again, I love Tyson's line about, probably some psycho fan pissed they killed Randy in Scream 2. See, no one, someone agrees with you. Because they literally, so Wes is like so meta with the stuff. But I believe, and I love how also Angelina, she's like, I'm starting to wonder why Tori Spelling and David Schwimmer didn't come back, because it explains why they're not in the movie, because we found out in Scream 2 that they play characters in Stab. So I thought that, again, like, Wes does not leave anything unaddressed. Like, he's very smart and makes sure that all his everything's tied up into a bow. But I believe the next sequence, the big sequence, is the killing of Sarah Darling. So how do you feel about that set piece, Jenny McCarthy?
Why don't you start?
Yeah.
And talk about it. Yeah.
I think this scene
because
is fucking
again,
so
I want you to kind of go through it, and then I'll kind of react to
Okay. I really adore this sequence. Again, I don't know if how people are hit or miss, but again, it's not. I think her actual kill could have been more like violent, but it's all about that lead up, baby. And I just love how she goes to meet with Roman. That's your first hint, a first red herring, for Roman. I love, first of all, how she gets jump scared by Tyson with the gigantic, like, oversized scissors through his head. Cracks me up every time. But she's going to rehearse lines, and I just love the conversation she's having with, Roman, aka Ghostface. They're running lines, and she's like, "Oh, why do I have to be naked? Like, why am I showering after my boyfriend's being gutted to fish sticks?" It's just so funny the way she I think she's good in this movie. But again, when I said about Ghostface being underrated, I love when Roman's like, "It's not just any movie, it's my movie." And then it cuts to the Ghostface voice, and he's like, "And it's called Sarah Gets Skewered Like a Fucking Pig." I'm like, ooh, I love his lines in this movie. And then she's stranded in the studio by herself, and she's running through like the costume department, and I love how she's hiding in front of like a whole rack of Ghostface costumes, and she's calling the the studio security to come help her. And you just know that one of those ghost faces is real. And sure enough, it pops out. And I love the whole sequence that follows. I love how she grabs the plastic like knife, and she's like, "Oh fuck!" And she tries to hit him. And then she gets killed. She gets stabbed through the door. The actual kill isn't great, but I think the lead up to me was like not only humorous, but it was very suspenseful. Again, like, Wes knows how to intertwine it so well. So I think it was super suspenseful, and I enjoyed it. And I think that Jenny McCarthy got killed like at the perfect spot in the movie. I don't think she needed to be in it anymore.
Yeah. I actually, believe it or not, I feel pretty similar to you. I don't like the voice changer, so we don't even have to discuss that aspect. I do like the build-up, though, and the lead-up. I do like the costume, and one of the reasons why I love the Stab 3 set that I talked about in the beginning is because they utilize the fact that it's a set, so she does have the rubber, weapon that's fake. I
love it.
I think that's clever. I do think that's pretty fun. That's the type of fun that I like, that I want from a movie like this. Some of the other stuff that we haven't talked about yet it gets way over the top for me, where I'm sitting there like laughing, not in a good way. But this scene, like this scene. I don't know why it's so polarizing. I get the death itself is not great, and I do have an issue with, we're talking about a slasher in arguably the most consistent slasher franchise of all time, and it doesn't have really any gore. It has some blood splatter. So I do have a fundamental issue with it. I understand the backstory behind it.
Right.
So putting that aside, I think it's a fine scene, and I think it's just Wes being Wes and just creating tension.
Now, without going into specifics, we will talk about the later sequels. Because I don't know about the tone, do you think that this goes any more over the top than like 4, 5, and 6 do with the goofiness and scary? Because I think that 4, 5, and 6 are way more have way more scary movie like comedy moments than Scream 3. Like just because people say that it's Scream 3 is that movie. I'm like, I don't see it. I really don't see it.
I definitely see it. It's not necessary, for me at least. I don't know about other people. It's not necessarily the lines, like if you're pinpointing lines, because I do think there are lines in the sequels that get very campy. It's more of the overall tone and the sequences, like some of the sequences. And I think the ending, we differ so much on the ending of this movie. I think that plays a huge role of how I feel overall about this movie. I think the ending is probably, I don't know. It's not the campiest, but it's like the hokiest.
Oh, no way.
If that makes sense. So
I mean, not to me, but if that's how you feel, that's I can't. I mean, to me, the hokiest. You know, to me, what the hokiest one of the franchise is. Whew, you know which one is the hokiest to me. Scream 3 without a doubt. I mean, not Scream 3, Scream 6 without a doubt.
I wouldn't call Scream 6 hokey. I think that like McDermott's performance was hokey and stuff. Like there were things about that, but the overall tone, I don't know. I don't know.
It's hokey, yeah. But anyway,
there are sequences in this film where I feel like it just goes. It helps contribute to that narrative that we can talk about that we haven't gotten to yet.
Yeah, the only argument to that narrative, which we'll get to that sequence soon, is the explosion sequence. That's the only sequence I can see people making that argument.
Well, and it's a big one too. I mean, it's literally like.
Then again, to me,
one of the dumbest things I've ever seen in slashers. And that's saying a lot.
Come on, it's not.
Dude, it's.
We'll get there in a minute.
It's bad, man. But it's bad.
That's the next sequence. But before that, I wanted to ask how you feel about Sydney and her nightmare sequence with her mom.
Oh yeah.
I thought that was very creepy, and it brought back. Of course, we're talking about Wes Craven, so it's. I mean, I got Nightmare on Elm Street vibes, 100%.
I didn't love it. I didn't.
Really?
I would have liked it. I don't necessarily have an issue. I know people always talk about, Ghost Maureen and stuff. I don't have an issue with her having dreams and sequences, seeing her dead mom. I thought the execution, which I was very surprised because it's a Wes Craven film, I thought it was very poor. They just showed Maureen Prescott like with a little makeup, and she's just like walking up to the
bloody
window.
hands and bloody fingers.
Yeah, but there was no like ghostly elements to it. It was literally just
she's not
standing there. I don't know. It looked a little like you couldn't add any kind of effects to make it look like fog or anything rolling through.
Well, there's fog rolling through when she walks up.
Yeah, when she walks up, but like especially when she gets to the house, it's literally just a person with makeup, and it kind of takes me out of it in a way. I don't know.
Really, I feel like the misconception is people like it's not ghost Maureen. It's like literally just Sydney having a nightmare. So I feel like when people like think that she's seeing her ghost throughout, I'm like, it's her PTSD first of all in her head, and it's just that's a nightmare. Literally just a nightmare. So I never understood, but I thought it was I do like how when she's scratching down like Sid, come to mother. I feel so bad for Sydney, by the way, but I love the pop out of Ghostface. When he breaks the glass. I thought that was a good jump scare. Effective. And poor Cherokee, when she wakes up, he's like, what the fuck you doing, girl? When she wakes up.
Yeah.
All right, so let's get to the set piece that's probably the most controversial of the movie. Let's get to the whole
let's get
Jennifer
to it, 'cause I
Jolie.
really want to hear like how you defend this. Like how it's good for you. I don't see any redeeming quality to this set piece.
Well, first of all, what's good to me is the banter between everyone in that fucking house because it gets me. But
God.
Before we get to the actual like fax machine of it all, let's get to the Angelina's bodyguard's death, which is right in that sequence as well. He's a fucking asshole. What he says to what he thinks is Dewey about Tatum. I'm like, who the fuck do you think you are saying that? I can't remember his name because
Patrick Warburton.
Stone, yeah, that's the actor name.
Yeah.
He plays Steven Stone in this movie. Such like a wrestler name. But when he's like she catches Gail like snooping around outside, and she goes in. They have the whole back and forth. They have more pictures of another picture was left of Maureen Prescott at Sarah Darling's death. So her and Dewey are talking about that. And I love, first of all, again going back to Parker Posey, the whole scene when she's like who dies next, and she's like to Gail, you do. It's just so fucking funny. But
and you don't think that's more hokey? Like you don't think do you think there are hokier characters and moments in other sequels?
100%. To me, but the comedy to me is so natural.
He's more campy than Debbie Salt. I mean, she's like,
I think
bad.
but again, I think Debbie Salt's camp. I think those are two examples of great camp versus when you get into later sequels, the camp is not good as much. I think the comedy is. I think the comedy feels natural. They still feel like actual people, whereas Mindy in certain scenes in 5 and a lot of 6, she doesn't feel like an actual person. She feels like a written character. I still feel like Jennifer Jolie's an actual person. I don't feel, and again, we'll get to those sequels. I don't want to, but that's where my difference is. It's the way he makes it feel like it's an actual character in person. But I love every banter going on. But again, Steven Stone, when he goes to check Dewey's trailer, again, we didn't say that Dewey lives in a trailer on Jennifer's property for the time being of filming, which is pretty funny. But yeah, he's like, he gets a phone call from Ghostface, but again, it's doing the Dewey voice. And he's like, yeah, like, what are you doing in my trailer? Just making sure that no one's here to kill you like they did your little sister. I'm like, why would you say that? That is the most horrible thing that someone could say. And I love when Ghostface pops out. He goes, that makes me angry. And he just fucking stabs him. So I'm actually happy with that death. I'm happy he died. And I love the sequence of him slowly walking up to the house. That's how everyone finds out that, Ghostface is there. And he just falls down and the power goes out. So I do love the whole they scream when the power goes out. To me, like, it's funny. I chuckle. Where it does go to the point where it gets a little ridiculous, which I will give people, is when they're getting the script sent to them via fax machine. So they're all like, I want to know what happens next. I want to know what happens next. Keep reading. Like, I love this. I love the plot, and I love the sequence of like how they're getting the script of who's going to die. Like, literally, that's smart to me. Where it gets a little, where I can give certain people like a little bit of bait to like where they can rip it apart, is when they actually go like, I love how Gail's like, no, he wants us to go outside, but he really wants us to be inside. I love how they're like debating on whether to go outside or inside. That's clever. But when what's the guy's name? The guy playing Dewey, Tom or whatever, Tom Prince, when he's like, I need to know what happens, and he goes back inside, and the killer will be whoever smells the gas. It's like, okay, well, how did you know that? I guess maybe because the lights went out. But again, we wanted an explosion. So again, that specific scene, I'm like, that was a little stupid. But once you get the explosion, again, I think it goes back to being fine. Rolling down the hill. I think it's funny. But Angelina, again, this is where we start seeing Angelina as a red herring. So again, another thing in Scream 3, I think the red herrings are a lot more natural than the later sequels. We have so many. Mark Kincaid, we have the producer, John Milton, Roman's a red herring, Angelina's a red herring. You can argue that Jennifer Jolie is a red herring. There's so many red herrings in this movie. I think they all get their moment to showcase that, whereas in the other ones, it's kind of like we're just told they're a red herring. But yeah, so how do you give it to me? Because this is a bad sequence to a lot of people. So what do you think?
I'll just go through it. I don't think Jennifer Jolie is like a natural character. I disagree with you completely. I think she feels so written. She's just, and I like her as a character. I actually don't think she's terrible. I think she's funny because her performance, the Parker Posey, is just funny naturally. Aces. But she feels so much like her. I mean, that I have to disagree with you there. I mean, she's so over the top. Like, nobody acts that way. It's a little. What? I would contrast her with the real Gale Weathers. The real Gale Weathers is actually funny as well when she's interacting with her,
together.
But she's more natural. She feels like a real character. Obviously, Courtney Cox.
We're talking about a Hollywood actress in universe in the movie. Like,
I know. Yeah, I know. Yeah. So yeah, we'll get that out of the way. This sequence, man, I don't know how you can downplay it and say it's just a little bit hokey. And I think this is like literally like Looney Tunes level, like ridiculous and stupid. There's so many layers and elements to it. You talk about the dialogue. It's like, okay, the dialogue. Okay, like, all right, I get it. Like, it's a comedy horror. The fax machine. The fact that he knew what everyone was gonna do. The fact that nobody smelled the gas at all, like throughout this entire house. I mean, that was a huge explosion. He knew that he was gonna pick up the lighter and read. Like, it. All of it is just like you're sitting there like, it almost feels like they did this on the fly because they wanted to get some kills in, but they didn't like have the approval for like the blood and guts, and they didn't want more stabbing scenes, so let's do an explosion. But then afterwards, pretty much everyone survives. It's only the one guy who dies, correct?
Yeah, there's two. Well, there's two. It's Stone and then Tom dies in the explosion.
Who was the first one?
Well, Steven Stone dies in the trailer, and then Tom dies.
Oh, yeah. No, that happens beforehand. Yeah. But in the explosion itself, it's only the one guy who survives. And I'm just, it's like right in the middle of the movie. It's right before Sydney gets there, and I could see viewers, me included, sitting there like, okay, Sydney hasn't come to the fold yet. We're still waiting for her. We got all these characters who are not very memorable, besides maybe, Jennifer Jolie, just because she's so over the top.
She's amazing.
We have this sequence. I can just imagine people sitting there for the first time watching this saying, like, what are we doing here? Like, what is this Scream? What's going on? Can I get Sidney Prescott here? And I don't know. I just feel like it's such a statement piece for this movie that people cling on to, rightfully so, because it is kind of right in the middle of everything, and it is so over the top and hokey. I do think you downplay it a little bit, which is, it's your opinion. I just think that it's ridiculous. It's one of the more ridiculous sequences for a franchise that is very comedic. This takes it to like a different form. Like I said, it's almost like Looney Tunes level, just silly.
I mean, yeah, I'll give you that it is the goofiest set piece in the movie, but I don't think it's the goofiest in the franchise. It doesn't take me out of it at all. I think it, again, is maybe my least favorite part of this movie, so I'll give you that, but it's not like a deal breaker for me. And I just want to say, when Gail is like yelling at them to just chill out, but she's like, wait for the fucking movie. That's a message to everyone online and Twitter, like, wait for the movie. Stop fucking trying to spoil shit and stop trying to go into all these movies. Just chill out. Wait for the fucking movie. I use that meme every time someone's like trying to like figure out plots of these movies. I'm like, wait for the fucking movie. So I love that. Yeah, I think it's debatable. I'm not gonna downplay you because I know a lot of people share that opinion, but I don't think it shouldn't take people out of the movie, I think, especially because right after this, they make the smart decision to be at the police station, and that's when Sydney rejoins the group. I think if they didn't do that right after, I would have been like, maybe like, all right, come on, guys. But they were smart enough to be like, all right, that's done. Let's get Sydney with the crew.
Yeah, no, now that we're talking about it, it does almost feel like a shift, like a major shift. This happens. This wraps up the first half of the movie, and we get like the zaniness of the first half, and then, all right, Sydney's here. Now let's get back to what makes Scream great, and let's have Sydney kind of try to figure this out while she's being hunted. So it is a big shift. You also mentioned, what did you mention? You also mentioned the red herrings, how they feel natural.
Mm-hmm.
I will agree with you, and that is why I hate that Roman is our solo Ghostface, because we get all these excellent red herrings and these different characters that they subtly kind of, I could see people in theater like going to their buddy next to him like, oh man, did you see that part with Mark Kincaid? Like that he could be Ghostface. And same with what's her name? What's the character's name? Angelina. Obviously, she was originally supposed to be a Ghostface, so she has scenes where it's, she steals the Ghostface mask. They didn't capitalize on how well they executed all those red herrings, and they made it a character that nobody would have suspected because he's not in the movie a lot and doesn't have any real scenes with our main characters. So I feel like it is a strength, but it also reminds me of the letdown of the finale. So it's kind of like a double-edged sword, if you will.
Yeah, I think when Scream is at its best is when you have people and they're like, oh my god, it could be that, and that. So
yes.
I would say that as a pro of Scream 3. But again, I just feel different with you on the actual killer. I think it's smart that he's doesn't see Sydney until the finale, but we'll say that for the finale. But he is present with the other characters throughout the movie, but we'll get there eventually. But so pretty much Sydney comes back. How do you think of her being reintroduced? I love the one moment we really see Sydney smile besides the very end of the movie is when she sees Dewey, which is, that's
everything.
It's so heartwarming.
Everything with Sydney, they nail. I really do think. I don't remember who the writer was for this movie.
Aaron
it wasn't
Kruger.
Kevin Williamson.
Yeah.
He does a good job of continuing the legacy of Sydney. They handle her so great. I love the sequence where Dewey is refusing to give her up.
Yes, that's right after the...
until he absolutely has to. Because
he doesn't, though. She literally walks in the building. He doesn't even
Well,
give
that's
her
what
up
I'm getting
still.
to.
Yeah.
So that's what I'm getting to. So he goes to call her to let her know
that.
what's going on. And Sydney walks in. So I love that she walks in on her own terms. She didn't need someone else to
100%
to tell her. So that's great. I like how she kind of took matters into her own hands, and she actually gets pissed off at Dewey. She's like, "Why didn't you call me sooner? What the fuck?" You know?
Yeah.
Like, you're talking about my mom behind my back? Like, what's going on, you know?
Well, I'm happy
she's very sensitive to her mom still.
But, as she
very
should,
raw.
but I love how you, and even when he does go out of, like, Kincaid's office, who she's in there with Gail, to call her, to be like, yo, like, the jig is up, when he's leaving the voicemail, I love, first of all, it's so cute how, like, Dewey looks up and he, like, sees Sydney, but he's like, he's like, I just want to make sure you're okay. But it's Sydney's right there. I love that shot. I love that sequence so much. But even when he's leaving the voicemail, he's just really calling her to make sure she's okay. He doesn't even really say anything. But then I love their embrace. It's the one time we see Sydney smile in the entire movie. I love the Dewey-Sydney relationship. And we've talked about it, like, in some of our big episodes about the rankings, how Sydney and Gail's relationship is slowly evolving. And I love how when she first sees Gail, she kind of, like, they don't know to get whether or not they should give each other a hug. Did like the weird hug. But I think that's a natural progression of the relationship that they're franchise. So I love that. That to me is a very important moment. And I love how you brought up how she does get very annoyed with Dewey because she sees her mom's picture. She's like, Dewey, why didn't you tell me about this? This is my mother. And I also agree with Dewey's response. He's like, I assume they were bait to get you out of hiding. So they're both
which they are. So Dewey's right. And I'm also Team Dewey in this regard because I'm positive that Sydney, before the events of this movie, told Dewey under no circumstance are 100%. You to give up my location and if something were to happen. So, but I get why Sydney would like, dude, that's my mom. Like, this is different territory. Like, you got, you gotta let me know.
My mom is my mom. You know, she was killed. You know, I like how because I think that dynamic again adds layers to them so much, and I mean, again, Kincaid the whole time is like, we need Sydney. And we'll get into the Kincaid of it a little bit, but when she finally shows up, you can tell right away he's smitten. And I know he's a little creepy.
So what do you think about now that Sydney's here?
Mm-hmm.
I love her and Dewey in this movie. It might be one of my favorite relationships between the two. I love when she's in danger, she's calling out to Dewey on the stab set. What do you feel about her and Gail? I feel like they don't have as much as her and Dewey in this movie. It's kind of not a letdown, but it's just there's not as much substance there. Maybe I'm missing something that you can highlight, but I feel like they don't really interact a whole lot compared to the first two movies. I know you said they have that tumultuous relationship where you know, which is shown. They do like the hesitation hug. So I do think it's played well. I just wish maybe we got a little bit more of just them two without Dewey there.
I could see that because they don't have any scenes alone. Like they do in Scream 4 and Scream 5, obviously, and obviously we'll see in Scream 7. But I think it's also makes sense because in the first two Scream movies, they're so at odds, and it's not really until the end of Scream 2 when they're like kind of forced to be in a finale together and kind of fight together. So I think in Scream 3, it's kind of like, okay, we're past that. We're not friends, but we're past that. We respect each other. You know, we have someone who we both love dearly and care about. But I think that what really just makes it in this movie for me is that how the end set piece will get there, but like Gail is with Dewey, really concerned about Sydney, trying to get to Sydney when she's stuck alone with Roman. I think that's to me all I needed. I didn't really need to see like her and Gail alone. I think that's again, Wes didn't know we were gonna have more Scream movies after Scream 3, so maybe in your defense they should have, just in case this was the last Scream. But now that we have the other movies, I'm fine with how things played out in this movie, but I can see what you're saying.
We didn't talk about, before I forget to talk about it, I also think that this runtime is a little long. I think they could have benefited from cutting it down just a little bit, maybe like 10, 15 minutes. It is almost 2 hours long.
Yes.
And I do think for a movie that's this stylized and has this kind of tone, it could have been benefited from a tighter run. Obviously, you disagree because you think it's a masterpiece and you want a 3-hour Scream movie. Yeah. So, you know, because you eat everything up. This is guys, if you're listening for the first time, this is like Ant's baby. He's said this a couple times this episode. So it's kind of similar how I feel about Lord of the Rings, right? Like the Lord of the Rings trilogy 100%. Is my baby. So I can watch the extended cuts, which are like 4 hours long, and I can eat every little scene up. That's how you feel about these characters in this universe. For the more casual viewer like me, it does. I do feel the runtime a little bit more.
Okay.
So, that's just coming, where I'm coming from.
The only thing, I don't want to harp too much on it because we have so much to get to, but I think that it's paced well, and I actually think the movie flies by. But I will say every Scream movie, like Scream 1 through Scream 6, is right around that 2-hour mark, which is long, which is long for a slasher movie, but it's not long for Scream because of how many characters and because of the story. So I think overall this is consistent with the run. It is consistent with the run times of every Scream movie. Whether or not it works for someone specific, that's up to them. Obviously, it works more for me than you, but it is in line with every Scream movie, the runtime.
And it is shorter when I do my rewatch because I do fast forward the fax machine.
Oh my god, you fucker! You fucker.
They could have. That's actually They could have just eliminated that whole sequence. We would have had no controversy. You wouldn't have to defend it 25 years later, and it could have been a nice, tighter runtime. They could have killed that one character off much more efficiently. They didn't need that entire.
I'll give you they didn't need it, but I'm not mad it's there. But I'll give you that because I know that you are not on an island by yourself at all with that opinion.
Yeah.
I want to get to first of all, I want to say how I love the continuity, and I love how we show how Sydney was very heartbroken by Derek's death in Scream 2. It was actually Nev Campbell's idea that she wear the necklace that Derek gave her in Scream 2 throughout all of Scream 3. Again, I love the continuity. I love when things from
Derek.
previous movies.
I always feel so bad when
I do because he was really. That's why I think Scream 2 fucked her up so much, because she was forced to think that he was a killer by Mickey. We've talked about that already, but that broke her heart, because that could have been her husband. That could be her mark, in Scream 7. You know what I mean?
Her ultimate mark,
we'll get there.
Mark.
We'll talk about Scream 7 in that one day. But you know what I mean? I do like how we see that she still has him with her. It wasn't just like a sequel and she forgot it. Like, there was lasting impacts on Sydney. From Scream
and it
1
also
and Scream
highlights
2.
It also highlights that they weren't just a fling, that she did really love
Yeah.
him and care about him, and they were pretty serious, So it kind of makes 2 a little bit more emotional when you see 3, because you realize,
Correct.
like, oh my God, she did really care for that guy, and was tearing at her that she thought maybe he was another ghost face that was her boyfriend. I mean, yeah, fuck. And then when you think about, obviously, I don't know how they're going to handle it in Scream 7, but the fact that she's on a movie date, popcorn date, double date at the end of this movie with Mark Kincaid, who she also thought could have been Ghostface at a brief moment in this movie. Right. So it's like, you can't escape it. It's like, girl, you need to just find someone, and maybe that's what she did in Scream 7, who's completely unrelated to all of these events.
I really want to talk about Kincaid, but I just want to say one brief thing about Scream 7, because the people are just like, keyboard warriors. I think I never thought it made, because Kincaid's life is also filled with so much darkness, I think them two being together is a recipe for disaster. I 100% wanted Patrick Dempsey in Scream 7. It's always fun to see a face from the past. But when you think about it, I think Sydney needs someone later for her fucking sanity, rather than being with someone who's also involved with so much darkness. I mean, he literally says in this movie his favorite scary movie is his life. So I mean, yeah, it's like, you know what I mean?
Me too, yeah.
I think it's like, I think we will see someone who's better for Sydney in Scream 7 as a husband than Mark Kincaid, even though they had that, obviously, chemistry in this movie. That's all I want to say about Scream 7 with the casting.
Yeah, I don't disagree, and you can rationalize it however you want, but I think it's more of the fact that they wanted him back, clearly.
Oh, yeah.
And that this is like a plan B because they couldn't get him, it feels like.
So
that's what worries me, that it's like an on-the-fly thing that they decided, like, when they started shooting, like, okay, we need to get another Mark in here, because
I agree with you.
Unfortunately, bring up his name in the later sequels, which obviously was a mistake, because you shouldn't do that
that's a lesson.
So that's the only thing. I'm sure they're gonna flesh it out. Like you said, Kevin Williamson's a great writer, but it worries me. It does worry me that they're kind of going very similar to Scream 3, how they had to do rewrites. I mean, that's very on par. It's not as drastic. It's not as extreme, for sure.
That's also just a lesson to directors who are, you don't do an Easter egg unless you know that person is locked down in contract. That's also a lesson to a movie studio. I would have been like, maybe take that out. Maybe take that name out, because if I don't have him locked down and we have someone like Patrick Dempsey who has demands and stuff, we don't have him signed, Don't fucking put it like there's contracts and shit that have to be worked out. So whatever, that's for that. But let's get to probably, besides the finale, my favorite sequence of the entire movie and one of my favorite set pieces in the entire franchise. I want to get to the stab 3 set piece with Sydney. I am completely obsessed with this set piece so much.
Let's start. Actually, we didn't, because this is one of my favorite sequences in the entire franchise. It's right up there with everything. I love. It's so creative. It's so fun. Like I said before, with the fact that you're on a movie set, they get fun with it. How it's a fake house. There's fake doors. There's openings that shouldn't be there. There's entrances to the house that shouldn't be there. I think it's really well done.
It's so well directed. The only thing before we get that, I mean, we already mentioned it. Martha Meeks, Randy's sister, does pop up right before that sequence. We see the Randy video. You know, he gives us the rules of a trilogy. You know, the past comes back to bite you in the ass. You know, anyone can die. You know, this all even this means you, Sid. So we have we're meant to believe there's stakes. And I will get to that, but I do feel scared for the trio in this movie and their survival at certain points. And then obviously, you know, you have to basically you know, what does he say? Like you freeze him, decapitate him or whatever to get the killer. Like, you know, pretty much Michael Myers or Jason Voorhees you're dealing with, you know, when you get to part 3. So that was cute. I liked seeing Randy again. We miss him. I thought that was a perfect cameo to have him live on, but also keep his death being effective. I thought it was smart because Randy would record something like that just in case he's dead. So I thought that felt so natural to me, and that was cute.
He would record 6 of them, so I'm surprised they didn't keep doing it.
Exactly, do it. But and again, I like that we're introduced to Martha's sister. She does pop up in Scream 5. That's cute. But I just wanted to get that in there right before because that's right before the stab 3.
Shout out to Randy for sure. Yeah, it's always fun seeing him.
We love seeing it. But I completely agree with you about this set piece. Just before we get to that actual set piece, she does go to use the bathroom, and Dewey's waiting for outside, and that's where we get the little Angelina meets Sydney, and she's playing Sydney. You know, she's heard of it. Took some souvenirs. Sydney's like, "That's my fucking life, bitch. What are you talking about?" But again, like Nolan said, that's again to me, it's a natural red herring. She was originally supposed to be a killer, but even if she's not, that's still a suspect on the list. Weird interaction. Sydney kept it. You know, she's a sweetheart. She's like. And she's like, I wanted to make you proud. And she's like, you know, I don't give a fuck about these movies. She's like, I'm sure you would have. And again, that's just because Sydney is just the best. But then after Angelina leaves, I think she leaves a brush. And Sydney's like, oh, Angelina, you forgot this. And she runs out and she sees literally her house, Stu's house. And again, it looks so props to the production designers and everything of this movie because it looks so damn good. But like Nolan said, it's like the house. But it's not a full house, it's a set. So you'll see when she gets chased how there's some cool things that happen. And I think that was so cleverly done. I think it's smart how Sydney's walking through her house and she goes into her bedroom and we hear the voice of Billy in her head. Again, it's bringing back all this trauma. And then I just love the chase scenes so much throughout the house and throughout Stu's house. I love how when she eventually goes upstairs, like she does in the first movie, she opens the door, but there's nothing there, and she uses that to her advantage, and she throws Ghostface off onto the bed. And then to me, just what makes it matter the most is when she goes to the set piece of her mother's death, and she hears the voices of her mother. And then I want to get your opinion on this, but my interpretation is because we have a voice changer, a lot of people think that it's a manifestation in her head when the mom pops up and says, you know, to me, this is one of the creepiest lines of the entire franchise, and it gives me chills. You know, Sid, give mommy a kiss and we'll make up. I'm like, oh my God, that scares me. And she comes towards her. I think that's Roman getting in her head. I think it's real. A lot of people disagree with me.
I think it's real. I think this was obviously supposed to be 2 ghost faces, so I don't know if it was Roman. I think it was the second ghost face, or it could have been because he teleports a lot in this sequence. I love this sequence, but he has some teleportation, which I think because they filmed it knowing there was 2 ghost faces and they had to go back. So out of universe, I think it was a mistake. In universe, yes, it's because Roman's the soul killer. Definitely real because he does it again at the end of the movie. Exactly, how would he know to do that if it wasn't real? So I think it was real.
And I think
but then it just opens up like it's kind of a plot hole. I think you have to admit that he does kind of appear
but
in
he
two places.
also, we don't know, but he also could get there quick because of this, the way, the layout. We don't know the full layout because it's a set and not an actual house. He could have gotten there, like, it could have been like one more door from after he, who knows how the fuck he got here. Again, I'm not, logistics a lot, I'm not playing too much with.
Yeah, it's obviously because you're not following him the whole time, so we don't really know. But I do think that this was filmed with the intention. I think this would have been cool to reveal where Sidney sees both ghost faces at once. I think that could have been really cool. It could have stood out from the first two movies where she gets confirmation that there's multiple killers before the end of the movie. I think that would have been a cool little twist to this sequence. But yeah, that was just kind of more the end of it. But the whole chase scene itself, I love. I adore it so much. I get a huge smile out of it when she kind of hides behind the door and throws him down onto the bed. I mean, it's fun. It's a lot of fun. It's a big never split up moment for me. It's one of the dumber choices for Sidney she's ever done, going back into the house after she's chased around the porch and then going back upstairs.
Well, it's...
she's calling out to Dewey. Dewey's nearby. She should have just ran out instead of back into the house. I do think that was kind of silly, but
for me,
it
it's
made
like
for a good chase
the
scene.
curiosity got the better of her because she's seeing literally her life. So she's like she's pulled into it and like walking through it. And again, the trauma.
Even when she's being chased, do you think she's
for that? I think she's trying to. She's like, where the fuck do I run? I just said, where do I go? But I just want to get Nev Campbell. To me, it's one of the most heartbreaking moments in the franchise, and it doesn't include it. It's not Dewey's death to me is heartbreaking, and there's so many heartbreaking moments in the franchise, but one of the most heartbreaking moments doesn't involve a death. It's just Sidney calling out for Dewey, her big brother. She's calling like, Dewey, where are you? Like she needs Dewey. And I'm like, it just makes his death so much more sad because they really are. It's so heartbreaking.
I love their relationship because you have the badass Sidney Prescott, who is the final girl in this franchise. You talk about Gale Weathers, but Sidney is the badass.
Yeah.
More badass than anyone. She's more capable of taking down Ghostface than anyone. Right. But yet, still, she's calling out to that big brother figure. Oh, it's so and she sad. Needs help. It breaks my heart. It's heartbreaking. I know. Because
and again, that's why I will always say that I think Dewey, a lot of people say, he should have, I'm fine with his death. Like, he saved Tara, he saved his sister, like he couldn't save his own. A lot of people say he should have died saving Gale, but I think he should have died saving Sidney. Yeah. That's always who he looked out for this entire franchise.
I definitely think they mishandled his death. I think that he should have had a scene with Sidney.
Well, he should have made it to he'd earned making it to the Mocker house because he's an OG.
I think so. Yeah. And I think it was, because they would have escaped the hospital anyway, so it did feel a little like, did he really need to die?
Or he could have saved Tara there and still done that whole, he saved a sister like he couldn't save his and still made it to the end.
He did save them. He didn't need to die. He had already saved them. That was kind of my problem with it. You know what I mean? Yeah, right. So... But we'll see.
Yeah, going back to this, I just think that I like how you said because Sidney's so capable, but when she goes back, because she's still not this Sidney of the end of Scream. Like by the end of this movie, she's like, I'm done with this shit. But she's still in such a traumatic headspace because again, Scream 1, 2, and 3 are in a 4-year period. She's had so much happen to her. It's not like she had a 10-year break between Scream 3 and Scream 4, where she gets to be this, don't fuck with the original Sidney Prescott by the time we're at the end of Scream 4, She still has a lot going on, so I think that from being involved, like bringing that PTSD coming back to her so much when she walks through the set, she's not in her badass mode. She's in like, I need my big brother to come help me and come save me, which again just highlights how much of a special relationship that is. And again, to me, it's one of the things that makes Scream is Dewey and Sidney. So again, it really is jarring for me to not have a Dewey going forward. And my real wish was, which I didn't get in Scream 6, I need to see the effects front and center on Sidney. Well, clearly you didn't see it on Sidney because she wasn't in Scream 6, but I need to see the effects on Sidney, and I need to see it on Gale too, and how they interact with each other without Dewey. So we'll save that for when we get to our predictions, but it's just Sidney and Dewey in this movie to me. That's why I'm saying like Dewey is his most Dewey in this, because Sidney needs Dewey so much, even though she is this badass. And Gale does too, she just doesn't know it until the end of the movie. Gale's still doing her Gale thing, but it is Gale and Dewey in the finale. So I just think that sequence just highlights so much of what the heart of Scream is, and that is Dewey and Sidney. So that's just, I agree. We agree on that in Scream 3. That's one of the best parts of the franchise is that sequence, that sequence, which I 100%, 110% agree. It gives me chills every time.
It's so funny. This movie has like probably the worst sequence for me, and also maybe the best sequence for me as well. So, all within like a half hour of each other.
Let's get to your before we get into the finale, because I know we're running long. But let's get to your girl's cameo quick, because I thought that was comedy gold. Carrie Fisher with Gail.
I mean, you had Jane
Jennifer.
Silent Bob earlier. You're in Hollywood. You know, so it makes sense.
Well, I love how she's game. Carrie
meta.
Fisher is a trooper. She's so game to, like, you know, who got the role, the one who slept with fucking George Lucas. I'm like, she's fucking game, and it's she's a treasure. She's a treasure.
Exactly. There's really not much more to be said. It's anytime I see her on screen, it's
but
awesome,
she is integral too, because we find out that John Milton produced Maureen Evans is her stage name. Or no, Rena Reynolds. Sorry, Rena Reynolds, her stage name. But Milton produced Sydney's mom in these like old horror movies. So Milton has that Prescott connection, and he's producing the Stab movie. So we get a nice comedic scene when Dewey, Gale, and Jennifer go to confront him, and he's like having a meeting with Roman, and then Roman leaves. He's like, "Oh, get ready for my birthday celebration. You know, this is where the finale is going to take place. Come see it." But we get the iconic Jennifer Jolie line, you know, "You're obsessed with her and you're obsessed with her daughter." I fucking howl at the screen and laugh so much. But, you know, Milton's clearly like super, super, super red herring after we find out his connection. And he's also a scumbag with what he says in that scene, you know, like the truth is, like, you know, you want to get ahead in Hollywood, like, you know, you got to play the game. And it's just very scummy and slimy. And that's where the whole, you know, sexual abuse comes in, because obviously we find out that Maureen was like, you know, she was taken advantage of. Which could have led to Roman. So yeah, it's a very scummy scene with a scummy producer who we're led to believe a lot of people in Hollywood are apparently scummy people. But I think it was necessary to get another red herring, and it like kind of catapults us to the finale. I think that Carrie Fisher scene is actually more important than a lot of people think, because it leads to a really big piece of the movie.
I mean, she's the reason why they uncover her alter ego, because she said she sees the picture. She's like, "I never forget her face." So she knew instantly who she was in Hollywood and her fake name. So I mean, of course, without her, we wouldn't have gotten catapulted, like you said, into the third act here. So
So let's get into the third act. We want to talk about Kincaid for a minute before we get into the third act. What are your feelings on Mark Kincaid? Like, how do you like him? I thought he was a good character.
I thought Patrick Dempsey actually put on a pretty good performance. I thought he was pretty compelling. I thought he rode the line of being that red herring, but also being that cop that just wants to get the job done. I thought he actually
do you
was
think he's
very
creepy
impressed.
with Sydney? Like, he's a little too into her right away. Like, I'm like, dude, like, slow it down. Like, have some game. You're Patrick Dempsey. You're like you're looking like, chill out.
No, I don't. I mean, it's Nev Campbell, so
true, very true.
I can't.
I mean,
blame him.
she's up here and he's here, so she's still above him. But I'm just like, kind of like, dude, like, chill out. I do like the whole thing where he's flirting with her. He's like, you know, "My name's Mark." She's like, "I'll call you Mark when you catch the killer." I'm like, yes, I fucking love you. I love when she says that so much. It's so good. But yeah, so the finale, Sydney's back at the precinct, the police station, because obviously she just went through a traumatic experience. She's with the cops and she's waiting for next steps, but everyone else is heading to Roman's place for the party, and then Jennifer, Dewey, and Gale are going to confront them because of the whole, you know, thing, and they're led to believe that Sydney's gonna go there too because of the voice changer. They were gonna go back to Sydney, but Sydney, you know, it's Ghostface calling them, saying that she's heading to Milton's house because he wants to talk to them. And Milton's house, the finale, is also where Halloween H2O was filmed. A little fun fact. I love that fucking house, and I love that set, because I love the fucking finale of Halloween H2O so much, and I love this finale, so they're very again, guys, Halloween and Scream are always going to be intertwined. Always going to be intertwined. So let's get to the finale. I think this is probably one of the most fun finales, and then to me, one of the most personal finales as well. So how do you think of the whole, like, you know, it's kind of like a fun house, you know, when they first, like, you know, they all start walking around.
I like
think
the setting. I like the house. We have a lot of characters that end up at this party. So
let's
count
let's
them.
go through them.
Angelina,
Tyson.
We have what?
Tyson,
yeah. Roman.
Okay. Roman.
We have the trio comes Jennifer, Dewey,
Gale.
and
that's
Gale.
6 already. Angelina's
so that's
7.
6. Who's 7?
Is Angelina 7?
I already said Angelina.
Okay, so we have 6, and that's it. Because
And-
Milton's supposedly on his way, but obviously Milton's hidden away.
There, but he's not there. Yeah.
yeah.
So yeah, we have 6 characters.
Which is good, I
and,
think. That's good.
You know, we have our 2 who we know aren't Ghostface, Dewey and Gale. I mean, we're pretty much solidified in that.
We don't know, but we know. Come on. Yeah.
Yeah, so we have 4 characters, and, you know, Roman, he wasn't a red herring at all. But the others, you know, Angelina, you thought maybe, you know, it could have been any of them, really. I mean, there was nobody that was really ruled out. Jennifer Jolie, who was in the car with them, that goes with Dewey and Gale. She could be a Ghostface. At this point, you're thinking maybe there's definitely 2 Ghostface because there's always 2 Ghostface. So yeah, I mean, our characters without Sydney, I think it was smart for them to arrive without Sydney because they're in danger. They're in real danger. You have a little. I feel like when you're with Sydney, you do have a little security blanket because she is like the main of the franchise. She's
the finale, right.
So when they're away from Sydney, there's always a little extra layer of suspense for the viewer, I think. So when they do arrive and she's not there and they're like, that's weird, she hasn't arrived yet, you're like, uh-oh, here we go. So when they are getting chased and stuff, and it's mostly the other characters that are getting hunted down, but I feel I'm, you know, pretty nervous for Gale and Dewey.
Yes,
you know?
Because the goal is to get it down to Gale and Dewey so they can be trapped to lure Sydney. Because there's no way Sydney's coming for the other, like, she doesn't know those people. She's coming to save her big brother, and, you know, Gale's attached to her big brother, so she's coming there as well. But what do you think about how they're dispatched, how they go? I mean, Roman's a fake out. Obviously, we know why he's a fake out, because he's the killer. What do you think about so who gets killed? Tyson. Angelina gets killed first, correct? I believe. Yeah, Angelina gets killed first.
Yeah, I mean, I know there's a lot of contention with that scene where Gale checks his pulse, and she says she's dead.
In a heightened sense of fear, so I don't
have a problem with it, but not for the reason that people have a problem with it. I don't think it's out of the question that she would not feel his pulse.
She's not like a
I just feel like it's a lazy way to kind of make us forget about Roman for a little bit because we think he's dead. I wish he was more active throughout this sequence, and he was more of a character running around, kind of like in other movies. We think he's dead in the freezer the whole time, and that's supposed to be the big fake out, but I wish they were a little bit more clever in him kind of being more an active participant before he's revealed.
I could see that aspect, but again, like the fake out doesn't bother me. And again, we've had fake outs later in the franchise to me that are done way worse. I won't comment on them till we get to that movie. But I think that I could see your aspect. It would have been cool, like maybe him running around and like maybe he gets chased off and we don't know. But I think it worked for what they had to do, and because once they do start exploring, it is kind of done pretty quick, the killing, so we can get to the whole Sydney of it all.
Yeah.
I think that it's hilarious. We find out that Angelina, you know, she did sleep with Milton to get the role of Sidney Prescott, and that's again another, you know, Me Too before Me Too thing. And I just love the whole when she, you know, you guys are crazy if you don't get out of here, and then she gets stabbed by Ghostface, and you have Jennifer and Gale. They just scream and run out. I think that's another. I get a chuckle out of that part, and then I do love Tyson's death scene too, because Ghostface comes and attacks everybody. He slashes Dewey's arm. Jennifer gets like thrown into this closet that it goes to another place, and then Tyson's like chased and stabbed a few times and thrown off a balcony. I love when he's running down the stairs. He's like, "Oh, you motherfucker!" He's like chasing him. To me, that's like good comedy, not like fuck Bruce Willis. I'm like, oh, that's so bad to me in Scream 4. But I like how we get rid of like the side characters quick, and I do love Jennifer's death scene when she, again, it's such a subversion, because to me it's like, girl, why are you locking yourself in a closet? But Wes is so smart, we're like usually like, oh, they're trapped in a closet, like they have nowhere to go, but there's a secret passage she like falls through again, and she's in a different area of the house. And I love how she's like running. I love a spiral staircase, just that's my thing. I don't know why I like it. But I love how she's running down the stairs and then Ghostface comes back up and chases her, and then we have the two-way mirror. I think that was pretty suspenseful because Dewey and Gale can't see her, and she's like shouting for their help, and it takes them to see the mirror like rumbling and shaking. And I think it's smart because of how what's his commentary on how he has so many different scripts for Scream, because obviously like scripts for Scream 2 were leaked and all that. So in Scream 3, she's like, you can't kill me. I'm the killer in Stab 3. When earlier in the movie she said she was the next to die. So obviously there were multiple versions of the script where Gail was killed and she was a killer in the universe of Stab. So I thought that was smart that Parker Posey's character Jennifer was saying that. And then I kind of felt bad. I didn't want Jennifer Jolie to be in another Scream movie because I think we had her like 110% in Scream 3 and I got my fill of her and more, and I loved her so much. But I was kind of like sad when she died. I'm like, oh, she was a fun character. But I didn't need to see her again. And like, I didn't need her to be like Scream 4, 5, 6. Like, I think we got all of her we needed in Scream 3. But it was sad. Like, oh, she was a good character. She was fun. I liked her. I liked her death scene.
It's fine. It's
Again,
a
it's
little
not
too
overly
similar
bloody.
to Scream
Yeah.
2. They kind of do a callback to Scream 2 with the two-way mirror stuff.
Oh, with the Dewey stuff.
The not the two-way mirror, but the soundproof of it all.
Okay.
It was good. It was very creepy. The fact that it's even there, like that people are watching the bedroom, like from the other side, like that, like that was more of like the creepiness. The fact that he used to have these parties, and I guess he used to I mean, it's pretty dark. Again, he used to abuse these women in this bedroom.
It's really
dark.
dark.
I guess there was an audience, so that was the creepiest part to me. But yeah, it was good. It was fun. I do like when they're kind of all running around together, and they're like, all right, he can't get us if we stick together, and all of a sudden he just comes out and starts stabbing everyone.
I love
cool.
it. It's like,
yeah.
So after everyone's dispatched, I get so scared. I'll never forget the first time I watched that when Ghostface grabs Gail, and she like pushes herself. I'm like, oh God, don't kill Gail. Like, please don't kill Gail. I was so like nervous. This is what I'm talking about. Like, I was actually nervous for our main trio. Like, they were in danger in this movie. So I was very scared for Gail when she got grabbed. I'm like, oh my God, they're gonna fucking kill her. It's gonna be like Dewey and Sydney in the finale. So Gail pushes herself, but she's resourceful. She's fucking Gail Weathers. She pushes herself down the basement, and Ghostface gets knocked out for a second. And I do love how she calls Dewey on the cell phone. But again, this to me is where the voice changer is clever. But Dewey answers, and he actually does the smart. He's like, how do I know it's really you and not Ghostface? And she's like, Dewey, it's fucking me. He's like, well, that's what Ghostface would say. I'm like, that to me is so smart and clever. And then when he does open the door, because he at this point is like, I want to save Gail, I love her. It was Gail on the phone and not Ghostface. I thought that was a clever subversion of a phone call, because it really was her and not the voice changer. And it is funny and goofy when he throws the knife like perfectly at Dewey's forehead, and it doesn't stab him, but the other. And then Dewey falls down too, and we find out, he has another knife. And that's how he traps him, and that's how we get Sydney to the house. But I just really loved that scene, because I'm like, oh, they used it's like a reversed voice changer, because it really wasn't. So I thought that was cool.
Yeah.
And then
no comment.
No comment.
I don't like it. I don't like the voice changer.
I know you don't like the voice changer. I know you don't like it.
It's just the whole dialogue where he's like, how do I know? It's like we've seen that so many times in movies where I'm sitting there like, okay, can we just get through this part, and then can we just get back to the action? I don't know.
Okay.
It's okay.
Were you nervous for Gail? What do you remember the first time you saw it? Were you nervous for like Gail?
Yeah, like I said, the fact that they're split up from Sydney, I was half expecting one of them to die before Sydney could get there, or die as Sydney's arriving. So yeah, I mean the stakes are pretty high right now for sure for those characters. Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. So when Ghostface calls Sydney at the police station, first of all, Kincaid's nowhere. He's gone, so he's doing whatever. He's investigating. I love, Ghostface does a whole, when you're friends with Sydney, you die. And then she hears, Dewey and Gail screaming. So she's like, where do I come see you? And then she's like, upset because obviously she doesn't have to go face her demons. But she's Sydney fucking Prescott. So she gets her bulletproof vest on. We don't see it, but it's implied because you see it in the background. And she pulls out the gun and everything. So she's prepared and she goes. And I love, again, I feel like in so many movies, the final girl would just go running in right away. But Ghostface calls her when she gets there, and he does the whole, metal detector to make sure she throws the gun in the pool. But again, she's Sydney Prescott. She's got a trick up her sleeve. But I love how he's like, come in, they're waiting for her. She's like, no fucking way. How do I know they're not dead already? I'm like, yes, girl. You were asking the right questions. And then Ghostface is like, just look for yourself. You don't have to go inside. And she sees them, and then of course she goes in and tries to help them. And then I love how Ghostface pops up and he hits her, but then she gets back up and we find out that she not only broke one gun, but she hid another gun in her like boot or whatever, so she didn't get it with the metal detector. And I love her line of, think again, it's your turn to scream, asshole. I'm like, oh fuck yes. When she shoots him, I'm like cheering every time. I love her so much. But then right after that, she like halfway frees Dewey and Gale, and then we see that they're like, oh, Sid, look behind you, and Ghostface isn't there anymore. And then that's when you get the whole Mark Kincaid pops out. So that's the whole like, is it Mark? Like, all right, now Mark Kincaid's like the red herring, like you're a fucking killer. So they're kind of have the whole like standoff, and then you get a Ghostface pop out, and then Mark Kincaid is, we find out he goes to protect Sydney, and I love that scene so much. I'm like, all right, he can stay. He's a good guy. I love that scene so much because you have the whole like, oh fuck, like it's so perfectly placed the way he enters stage, and then you find out he really is just there to see what's going on and protect Sydney. And he does save Sydney. He gets knocked out, but Sydney runs out of bullets. And I love how it's just like, you want me, motherfucker, come and get me. And then her chase starts. I like how that whole thing plays out, and I love how like Patrick Dempsey is included in the beginning of the finale, and then he is included again when we get to the end. But he's a really good red herring, and I do appreciate that he wasn't a killer, because I didn't need another love interest, or not that he's a love interest yet, but I didn't need him to be a killer because it would have been so obvious.
I would have really enjoyed if he was one of the ghost faces. I still wanted 2 ghost faces out of this movie. I don't like Roman, so anything would have been better for me personally, but I think it would have been cool if he was a ghost face, like with Angelina, like them two like were ghost faces, because they were prominent characters. And I don't know, I just feel like, and I feel like I'm kind of biased because he's the killer in Thanksgiving, and I love that movie. So seeing his monologue in Thanksgiving makes me think of how good he would be as a ghost face in this movie. So he did so well though as Kincaid and as a red herring. It's like, man, I kind of wish there was a payoff there and he was one of the ghost faces. I don't know.
Okay.
I like this third act a lot until I don't. I mean, it just falls off a cliff when we get the reveal for me. But
really?
This whole sequence is great. I mean, Sydney, another dumb moment. This might be the dumbest movie for her. She doesn't double tap and go and shoot him in the head. She just leaves him there and tries to save her friends. I think that was, something that she's commented on in the movies, how you have to make sure that they're dead before you walk away or whatever. I think it was Scream 2, right? With what's his name? Like always come back.
She says, just in case, and she fucking shoots Mrs. Loomis in the head. I think she's just in the height, like, let me free Dewey and Gale quick.
No, I know her logic, but it was definitely, at this point, we're in the third entry. You expect a little bit more out of Sydney.
She fucking owns that shit, and when she shoots him again and misses, she's like, you come get me. Like, leave them, come get me. So she owns that shit, and I love how she does the little, like, she runs to the door, but then she psychs him out, and he falls through the glass, and she's fucking psyching these motherfuckers out left and right, these ghost faces. And she's like how fucking track starts, too, in Scream 3, running through the house. So I guess let's get to the reveal, because we're gonna feel super different on the reveal. So, obviously, we've already revealed that Roman is the killer, and we find out that he is Sydney's, half-brother, because he showed up on Maureen's doorstep and claimed that, blah, 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 he's her son. And then his version of events is that she closed the door in his face. Again, people are going to hate on Maureen after they hear that, but you don't know. This is a killer telling you the story. You don't know how it actually went down. And again, Roman could have reminded Maureen of all of the trauma and sexual abuse she went through in Hollywood. He could have been the product of one of those, rapes or whatever. We don't know the actual story. We just know that Roman is Maureen's son, and she didn't raise him. She raised Sydney. She chose to get married to Neil and raise Sydney. So the whole reveal is that, Sydney had Roman's life. Roman was, shut out, and he pretty much is the reason why Billy killed Sydney's mom. And he supplied Billy with all of the motivation he needed, that Billy's dad was sleeping with Maureen, and that everyone knew about Cotton, but not Billy's dad. That broke up, Billy's parents' marriage, blah, blah, blah. So that he pretty much started what led to Maureen, but he didn't. So when people say that it's a cop out because we found out that Roman started Ghostface, and he didn't. All he did was initiate the killing of Maureen. He even says in the finale, "I had no idea they were going to make a movie of their own." So everyone who
did more than that, though. He says that he directed Billy. Like he's like, I'm a director, I direct. He pretty much step by step, he told Billy like how to kill Maureen and stuff. So he didn't just leave a videotape. He was active. Like Billy knew who he was. He met with Billy and stuff. Yeah. So
but he didn't after he killed Maureen, after he had Billy kill Maureen, he let it be. Billy started Ghostface, not Roman. So when people say like it's a cop out, it's not, because he's literally says, I had no idea they're going to make a movie of their own.
Well, he created Billy.
He motivated Billy.
Create Billy.
Yeah. He created Billy, but he didn't create Ghostface.
Well, I mean, it's
so kinda, to me, it's people are
without that there is no Ghostface.
I think some people get the misconception that like Roman's the one who actually killed Maureen, but he didn't. He's the puppet master.
Yes.
Of it all.
It just diminishes Scream 1, and I know you don't feel the same way, but the fact that like you go back now and you watch the first movie, and the fact that Billy is not the mastermind that you think he is, and that he's literally just a puppet, and he was created. Yeah, he was the mastermind who created Ghostface, but
100%.
None of that would be true, like would have happened if he wasn't turned into this monster from Roman. So it knocks him down a little bit.
So you think that because Billy got the whole like assist and motivation from Roman, it hurts Billy's legacy?
A little bit, yeah. Okay. Especially because he's one of my favorite Ghostfaces.
He's my favorite Ghostface.
Yeah, so it kind of it to me it knocks him down a peg. Okay. I don't know.
Now, what do you think about the whole that? How do you feel about it being like one on like literally besides Milton, who gets literally killed off, because Roman's plan is Sydney is taking out revenge because she found out what happened to her mom, and she's gonna kill Milton, and because he has the recording of her, I'm gonna make you pay, blah 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 blah. What besides? So he gets dispatched. Obviously, he slits Milton's throat.
I didn't understand. I get the whole estranged family. You're pissed and you're jealous at your sister. That stuff obviously.
Right, you stole my life, pretty much.
I get that. Like that's obvious. What I don't get is his motive beyond that. So his motive was to paint Sydney as the villain, and he was going to be the hero and be the hero of this story. That doesn't make sense to me because he's already like a Hollywood director. He's already made it for himself. So it's not like he's a nobody and he's this guy who's like unemployed and doesn't have anything going for him. So it's a weird motive that he would want to do this whole hero villain narrative and kind of frame Sydney and become the hero, because he's already, a director. He's already a famous guy.
He's not famous. He's making.
He's made it. He's in Hollywood. Yeah, he's doing pretty good. Yeah. So I don't know. I don't know.
You hate the brother connection so much.
To me,
it's like, so personal. Like I do think, whether you like it or not, I think it was the smartest choice that Wes made to have it be one-on-one instead of. I know you think there should have been more Ghostface, but I think with the connection, that familiar connection, the fact that it's like Sydney versus Roman in the finale and no interruptions, like Gail and Dewey can't get to her. They're trying, but they can't. I think it's very smart, because I think the dialogue back and forth to me is like amazing between Sydney and Roman, like them going back and forth. I think it's. Yeah. I mean, again, I think they're acting. I know you don't think Scott Foley's doing good job.
The sole fact that he's her brother, I have to accept, because that's just Scream. I mean, Scream has done this now multiple times. A lot of like familial things. We have Debbie Salt, who's a character who we didn't know about,
related
and
to
it's
Billy,
a reveal.
Right.
That's part of what makes Scream, and I have to just accept that. It's more about how they did it, and Roman himself as a character. The fact that he never sees Sydney the entire movie, and the reveal is just so out of left field. I alluded to this before. Scream is at its best when you have these great red herrings, and it's a whodunit mystery. And similar to Scream 2, my issues with Scream 2, how it was almost impossible to guess the killers in Scream 2, because you have Mickey, who is largely not in the second half, and you have Debbie Salt, who's just I mean, nobody would have guessed. Maybe people could have guessed her, but like they couldn't have guessed her alter ego. It's very similar in this movie in Scream 3. He's not prominent enough to really matter until he takes the mask off, and that fucking stupid look on his face when he first takes the mask off. I'm like, this fucking dweeb
director
God,
and brother, dude. I love it so much.
Sydney's face, Nev Campbell's face in that moment is just exactly.
Do you know
how
why I
feel.
think it works for me? It's because that family is a family with so many secrets. And because he was abandoned, I mean, I don't think I needed to. Sydney's not going to go to the set and like meet with the director. I mean, where would she have met Rome? Like, he's the director of Stab 3. She's not going.
There could have been an infant in it. I mean,
I don't know. I think
you're talking about a different script now, so it would have been you know what I mean? It's hard to say. Like, within this script, yeah, but like, I think
it's fine because he was so abandoned. Like, he was literally abandoned by Maureen, and Sydney had no idea because of all the secrets. I think it's kind of fine when she's like, "Who the fuck are you?" And she's like, "Oh," and he says that. You kind of see once he says that, she's like, "Oh fuck," and then he goes through this whole like, you know, how his mom abandoned him, blah blah blah. You know, all this shit, and I just love how when
just before you get too much into the weeds,
yeah,
you like his performance. Obviously,
I
he's
love
one
it.
of your favorite ghost faces.
So
you don't think it's like one-sided, the scene? I think it's completely one-sided, and she's carrying his ass.
I mean,
I think he's so goofy, and just his acting is just not there. He's doing this monologue. I'm sitting there like, why are we supposed to care about any of this? I don't know. I just feel like his performance was not great.
I think Nev Campbell deserves like a fucking Oscar for Scream 3. How good she's doing in the finale. But I do think that Scott Foley is like, he's not Nev Campbell, but he's standing up to her. And I think the back and forth, like I'm clashing with them. Like, they're clashing good in my opinion. I'm not saying he's Nev Campbell, but I think he's doing a good job. I think he's great as a Ghostface in his performance. I'm not even
convinced that he's her actual brother. Like, maybe he saw Maureen, and Maureen's like, "Who the fuck are you?" And like, maybe he got a mix up. Maybe Maureen's not his real mother. I mean, we don't know.
That's what I want to say.
With
People, like, there's a lot of people who hate on Maureen, but like, you don't know how that actual interaction went. Like,
well, that too. We don't even know if he's actually related. They didn't have like DNA.
You know, he's saying that she slammed the door on his face, but he could have been a crazy berserk there, and she'd be like, "Oh my god, I need to get this." Like, you know what I mean? You don't know. You're hearing the story from a killer.
I think the issue. I hear what you're saying, and I do agree with you. It's an unreliable narrator. I think the issue, though, is that we don't have an alternate to go on. Like, that's the only narrative we have that they present. Maybe if we would have gotten a line from Sydney in this moment, like, "Oh, I don't know," that could have explained something different. Like, "Oh, my mom, maybe like you got the wrong mother or something." But this is the only thing we have to go on, so we have to just kind of assume that it's real. And I think that's why people kind of have an issue with it. Yeah,
I just think it makes Maureen more relatable because this poor woman, we find out how much trauma she was dealing with, which maybe could have led to her acting out. Like, obviously what she does in Scream 1 is not very nice, like, you know, but there's a lot of layers to that character. And it's fascinating because she's a character that we never have, like, on screen. Really ever, but she's so important to the narrative of the entire trilogy of the OG. So to me, again, so smart. But I love.
What do you think of the fact that he like completely ignores Maureen's new husband, Sydney's dad, and he's like not even mentioned in this third act? He doesn't go and kill him. He doesn't make him pay. I know that people have issue with that. I think in general people have an issue with the fact that Sydney's dad isn't really around. Largely, but especially, I mean, we have this family dynamic, this secret brother. You would think that he would be pissed off at her new husband that isn't his father as well.
I think it's just abandonment, mommy abandonment. It's just because, like, that's his mom. Like, that she married someone else, but that's his mom, and her dad's really not really. I feel like he's the dad who's always working. Even with, I feel like poor Cindy kind of like was left alone a lot of her childhood too. Even though I think her memories, I mean, she only has good memories with her mom. She didn't know her secret life. But I kind of don't. I think the dad's like almost like a non-issue for him. He's like, let me just get to what hurt Maureen the most and what hurt Sydney the most. Like, I want to go for Sydney. I want to just really like torment Sydney's mom and like talk shit about her before I kill you. And to me, it's just Roman's just like, he's a little fucker. Like, he just wants to go for the kill and get it done. He's a director. He's very creative and he's very sassy. But I love how he's like, you know, hero and villain. She's like, yeah, all right. She's like, you got what you wanted. Hero and villain face to face. You know what happens now? The villain dies. I get Nev Campbell. Sydney's lines in the finale are so fucking good. And I love how at a certain point, she's just like, you know, God, why don't you stop your whine and get on with this shit? I've heard this shit before. She's literally heard it like 3 times before, all these monologues. And then she literally tells, like, do you know why you kill people, Roman? Do you? Because you choose to. There's literally no one else to blame. And I love how she just, like, takes some fucking responsibility. And she's like, fuck you, fuck you. And they just start fighting. And I think the choreography of the fighting is so fucking good. I mean, they're going at it. They're brawling. They're full-on brawling in this movie. Cindy's getting in good digs. Roman's getting in good digs. I was, like, felt so bad when he starts kicking her on the floor. I just think it's so well choreographed. And I did get very scared because, again, Kincaid tries to do the nice thing and come save her, but he also supplies Roman with a gun by doing that because he gets taken out because he's injured, so he gets knocked out really quick. And then Roman finds the gun. I do think this add some street cred to Roman because Sydney pops up with the knife. She's like, lose something, and he goes, found something. I love that line when he says that, and it's the gun. And then he shoots her. And I remember the first time I saw this, I'm like, oh my god. He just shot Sydney, like, what's happening right now? This is my girl. And I could have assumed that she's wearing a vest because he shot her in the stomach. But then he shoots her again, and it's in the chest, but it almost, like, made you almost assume it was closer to the neck. I'm like, oh my god, like, she got shot twice. What's going to happen? So, like, I actually really feared for Sydney's survival in this finale. I think, like, Roman was one of the Ghostface that was also close to taking her out. But then, you know, with Sydney fucking Prescott, she does the whole phone call and she fakes him out and she stabs him. And I just love how after she stabs him a bunch of times, he's like, you know, at least I got to make my movie. And she's like, stab 3, right? And she fucking stabs him again. I'm like, oh, yes, she's such a fucking badass. So I fucking love how it plays out. And then, you know, Dewey and Gail, they pop in the room and they're like, oh, Kincaid, you're gonna be okay? And then she's like, oh my god, it's Roman. And then I do think that it shows Sydney's humanity. And because he is, at the end of the day, her brother, and maybe she does feel from some sort of fucked up way that he was, you know, quote unquote, abandoned, I do think it means a lot, and it gives me chills, and it gets me emotional when she, like, grabs his hand as he dies. I don't know, I felt a lot of emotion in that moment, and I think it works for me so much.
How do you, emotional. There's no weight behind it.
Yes, there is. There's so much weight behind it.
Oh, it's like...
I love it.
I feel like that was in the moment. They're like while they were shooting that scene, they're like, let's do a take where you grab his hand.
That was like, so emotional to me. Oh, I love it. I love it.
I am so perplexed why Roman works so well for you. I really am.
Number 3, man.
I know we think about this franchise on a different level, and I try to get there in your mind, but it just is such a... for a third entry.
Well, again, my ranking of Ghostfaces are the Ghostfaces that have the most effect on Sydney, and what he does to her through the phone calls in the first half, the set piece in the second half, he really fucks her up mentally. Again,
yeah.
So that's
my rankings of Ghostface are very. I feel they're because of the twist and the whole whodunit of it all, and you know, the performance goes into it as well, and I just. All of that just doesn't work for me with Roman. So I get why you like it because it relates to Sydney so much, and Sydney's your girl. So it makes sense in that regard. You know,
does the fight? I do.
What's that?
Like the fight work for you? Like do you think that's all? Do you think the fight choreography? I thought it was pretty well done fight and everything between. Sydney
the fight was good. I like the fight. Again, everything was one sided though with all of the line deliveries. I will give. My favorite scene, actually, my favorite part of this is not the fight. It's when after Sydney gets shot and she disappears and she's hiding behind the bar. I love how the perspective shifts to Roman and he's kind of, you're not, you don't care about Roman, but now he's being hunted. And you have Dewey and Gail kind of going around the room, like you can hear him from the outside, like, "Oh, let's try this door, let's try this hallway."
Very good sound design.
So he's kind of freaking out, where are they going to come from? But he's also looking for Sydney. So I love that how the hunter becomes the hunted, and that perspective shift was actually really cool. I do appreciate that. That was probably my favorite part of that whole sequence.
I love that. I think the sound mixing was really good in that. He's fucked once he's he's like he is fucked.
Because he's got Dewey and Gail barreling down on him. He doesn't have a weapon at this point. Yeah. I don't think he has. Does he still have the gun? Maybe he still has the gun.
Well, I don't think there's any bullets left or anything. I think
bullets left. Yeah. And then he goes against the bar, and then you get the jump, scare.
Yeah, because she stabs him, and she has him a few times before she does the whole, it's stab 3, right? Boom.
Yeah.
And then I just love how when Dewey and Gale come in, and he's like, careful. Randy said they're superhuman. And she's like, he's not superhuman, Dewey. He's not, because she's like, fuck him. And then he pops back up because he got stabbed, but he had the vest on still, so he's not.
Yeah.
And I love when Dewey's shooting, and he's like, head, Dewey. Shoot him in the head. He's like, oh yeah, fuck. Yeah, I forgot. And he shoots him in the head. I just love how he just fucking flies back. So yeah, and then I love how after that, you just get the close-up of Sydney. It's like, oh, poor girl. Been through so much. And then it just, I love the finale because my favorite characters get the happy ending they needed for the 10-year, 11-year break. I mean, I've never been excited about an engagement, but I was so happy when Dewey proposed to Gale. I'm like, it was so sweet. I love, these are my people. I love how Sydney like opens the gates to her property with the dog going in, and you know, we have the whole Mark and Kate is there in the finale, and he's like, you know, hey, we're watching. I wonder what movie they're watching. He's like, getting ready to watch a movie. You're gonna come? And she's like, what movie? Yeah. He's like, you have to first. He's like, you have to come and see. I'm like, you fucking, it's creepy, but whatever. So I like how they're all together. My people get their happy ending, and I think it's very fitting that Sydney closes the door and she doesn't do her 8,000 locks. She like leaves it open, and the door opens, and then she doesn't shut it, and it's almost like because she's at peace.
Close
finally.
The door, girl. Come on. We get it.
Come on.
Like, that was a little forced.
But I also
that was a little obvious, like what they were trying to say. I feel like it was a little too in your face.
But I also feel like people say like because she's finally at peace, which I agree. But it's also like it leaves the door open for more to come in the future if anyone wants to. I'm like,
yeah, it was like,
but it worked for me. I loved it.
It was one last eye roll to end this movie.
No, dude,
what did
you? So what did you think about them like being happy? Like, did you like? I know you're. Yeah. But how do you feel about?
Yeah,
the
it was a fine. It was a very cinematic, like,
yeah,
slow motion. You get the, like you said, her and her dog, the gates swinging open, and everyone's kind of, you know, having a good time. And she looks gorgeous, and Mark Kincaid's there, and he's got that $1 million smile, and he's got the popcorn. I mean, it's a feel good ending for sure. Yeah,
it wraps up what we think is the finale of Scream. As it, you know, because it did come back into 2011. This was 2000. And then one more thing, just before we wrap it up, we're at 2 hours. But Marco Beltrami, again, he does the score. I want him back for Scream 7. I think I want Sydney's theme back. I kind of think the score in 5 and 6 is fine, but it's the Marco Beltrami, what he does in the original trilogy and 4 too, but like specifically the original trilogy, I think it elevates it so much. I love the score in 3. I love the score in the original trilogy so much. 4 is good, but he kind of like falls off a little bit in 4.
Yeah, I like 4 better personally.
Really?
It's good. It's good in this. It's okay.
I hope
it's Scream. It feels like Scream, and that's all he needs to do. Yeah, it's good.
But yeah, guys, that's Scream 3. That's the 3rd Scream movie directed by Wes Craven. He did the first 4. You know, happy 25th anniversary. We got through it. I could talk about it for another hour, but we're going long. We're going long already. But yeah. We obviously feel very different about it, but I hope you guys enjoy both of our perspectives, and let us know who you agree with more, and let us know where Scream 3 ranks for you, because this franchise has so many different, like, everyone has a different ranking, and everyone feels different about the placement of these movies.
Yeah, for sure. Yeah, no, that was a great discussion. We got through it. We made it. We're halfway through the franchise officially.
Woo! For now.
Yeah, 25-year anniversary, Scream 3. Yeah, I know. For now, that's what I'm saying. We got to keep pumping these out because they're doing more movies. But who knows how long they're going to go. But yeah, that was it. So let's dive right into our Never Split Up moments. You won the poll for Azrael. We thank you for everyone for voting in that poll. So I'll let Anthony go first. I know he's probably having a hard time with this because he loves this movie and he doesn't want to nitpick the characters. But there's got to be some moment where you're kind of.
Yeah, I've had one that always bothers just because it's Jennifer Jolie, because I actually did like her a lot. It's not, I don't think Sydney does anything blatantly Never Split Up, because again she's in her headspace and I think she's doing what she can. Dewey and Gale pretty much don't do anything. I'm gonna go with Jennifer Jolie because every time when they get attacked and they're all, you even brought it up, they're all together and the Ghostface just shows up and starts slashing, which I fucking think is badass on Roman's part. But she chooses to leave the people who have been like watching out for her and side by side with her, like Gale and Dewey, the whole movie. She goes in the closet and hides, and then when she sits down, she falls back. That's not her fault, But again, like going in the closet alone, you're trapping yourself. So even if like they're dispatched or they run away, Ghostface knows where you were hiding. So I'm gonna put that Jennifer Jolie hides in the closet instead of at least running out of the room or staying with Gail or Dewey, because they're, and again, I mean, not to say anything bad about Gail or Dewey, but they're another body in front of you. Like, hello, like you haven't just, Ghostface has to go through them to get to you. So I think that the fact that she hid in the closet is kind of stupid. You're not only trapping yourself, but you're taking away from your protection. So I'm gonna go with her because I get bummed when she dies. I get bummed. The other people, I'm like, oh, you can die.
I give her a pass. She's a rookie. She hasn't been through the ropes like our other characters.
The trauma. She's not in the trauma yet.
I don't hold her as high a standard as our other characters because this is all new to her. So she's just doing what she's got to do. I'm a guy that might hide as well. I don't know. Like you
gotta run.
Who knows what we would do in this situation? You know. I have to go with Sydney though. I think she has two of the biggest never split up moments. I talked about them. First at the stab set where she runs into the house instead of running to Dewey. I'm gonna go with the ending though, where she shoots him in the chest. He's in the hallway, like in the other room, and she just leaves him to go untie. Like Dewey and Gail are safe in the chair. They're not like being like, they're not like drowning or they're not like over a fire pit. Like fine, so go make sure the killer's dead. She's talked about it in universe before. We've mentioned it. Randy has said it, like, earlier in the movie, how they're superhuman. So we have the in-universe explanation, but she doesn't execute. And I hold her to a higher standard than our other characters because she is Sidney fucking Prescott. So you got to go over there and you got to check and you got to shoot him in the head. I think so. That's my moment.
Okay. Hell yeah. We have two different moments. We got through another Scream installment. I'm so happy that we happy 25. Scream, happy 25.
Yeah. All right. Our scores. I'll let you decide. Do you want to go first? You want to go first?
I'll go first because again, I've spoiled that I would tie this trilogy if I could.
You're giving this a 10? There's no way.
I am going to give Scream 3.
Don't do it.
I want to give it a 10 so bad because I love it so much.
The fax scene alone has to give it
right,
like you have to knock it in.
It's gonna be a 9.9 because to me it is perfect to me. It is perfect.
Oh my!
I will give people the main reasons because I'll give people the lack of blood, and I'll give the fax machine scene, but again, like that's fine. But I will give people the lack of blood, but again, because I do think it's the weakest in that area with the blood. But again, like I'm supposed to judge the movie in the movie and not behind the scenes. But they were kind of put into a corner with that. But everything else to me, I think Sydney is amazing. The trio is amazing. It's a trilogy capper in an epic way. It feels big. It feels like a big Scream movie. It feels like a Hollywood. It feels big and I don't know. It feels grand and epic. The chase scenes are awesome. The characters are hilarious and awesome. And this was just Neve Campbell's like fucking all-timer Sidney Prescott performance. And I really hope that since she's back front and center, like she's gonna be front and center like she was in the OG trilogy again. I really hope that she brings it to the I want the emotion, I want the physicality, I want it all. And if she needs some reference, she should like rewatch Scream 3 because she absolutely fucking annihilated this role. It's a fun Scream movie. I love the characters, I love the set pieces, I love Wes Craven's directing, I love everything about it. I would give it a 10. I'll give it a 9.9 because I did nitpick the fax scene a little bit and the blood, so I'll be fair, but yeah, this is top tier Scream for me. Again, it's my ranking of the OG trilogy is 2, 1, 3, but they all are right neck and neck. So I'm 100% obsessed with Scream 3. I'm nervous for your score.
We did touch on it, the whole Columbine issue. Yep. Columbine had happened, and there was pressure from the studios. To me, I think that it just kind of pisses me off even more because it was the year 2000, the topic of violence in movies and video games and pop culture was so prevalent after Columbine. I really think they could have tackled that more. And I know there's a line from Roman or the producer in this movie where they say that line, like how there's violent, like when it was right before the detective says the whole he was stabbed line. I think they say something about like violence in movies. We don't want it to like get out there that there was a murder like connected to the movie or whatever. So I really think that was like a missed opportunity
Yeah, the studio got cold
for
feet for
Scream
sure.
3. But you said it. It's a fun Scream movie. I will agree, it's a fun Scream movie. I do like how it is different than the first two entries. It feels different. We're in a different setting completely. Hollywood. Nev is amazing. It's one of her, if not her best performance. Sidney Prescott, they handled her character beautifully. It's just, I mean, we just talked about it endlessly for 2 hours. There are a lot of things I don't like, though. So I gave Scream 2 a 7 out of 10.
What'd you give Scream 1? Do you remember? In the nines, high nines, right?
It was like mid to high nines.
Okay.
Yeah, I think it was like, mid to nines.
So you're mid to high nines, 7, and then now we're
7.
at Scream 3.
I've told you, I always flip flop on like what's my least favorite Scream, if it's
Right.
Scream 2 or Scream 3. For a score, though, I'm gonna have to give Scream 3 I'm gonna give it a 6 out of 10. 6.
Whew. Oh my goodness, that makes me sad. But okay,
Makes you
so
sad? I thought you would have thought it was lower.
So
I feel like
it's
I'm giving
still
it
good. That's good.
pretty
That's
generous score.
good.
Yeah, I mean, because I do
Okay.
have fun with it in the end. I just don't think it's technically on par with the other two.
Okay.
So that's
So
all.
you're
That's all.
mid 9, 7, 6. I'm
6.
10, 10, 9.9 so far.
Yeah. So there you go, guys. That's just kind of how we feel about this franchise so far. And I know it's going to get even more
Actually, it's going to get more
divisive
fascinating the further we go.
and
I
fascinating
think,
as we get into
because,
the last 3. Yeah.
like I've said, I'm an OG trilogy. It's my favorite franchise as a whole, but I'm an OG trilogy guy. So it's gonna be interesting when we get to 4, 5, and 6.
It's going to be interesting because now that we've gotten past the trilogy, now you can start to be a little less biased, I feel like, with the newer entries, because the first 3 means so much to you.
Yeah, we'll have
Not
a lot
that you're
to
not
discuss.
being honest,
Yeah,
but
no, I'm
they
being- yeah.
we all knew that
Yeah.
you were going to be around the 10
The
for all
OG
3 of them. So
the OG 3
I'm really
sacred.
curious to
Yeah.
see your scores for the next.
It's gonna be
the
interesting
movies.
when we get to. I would say, especially when we get to 5 and 6, it's gonna be very interesting.
Yeah. I know.
We'll get
I
there.
can't
We'll
wait.
get there. But I feel like
Yeah.
the next time we do cover Scream, guys, is probably gonna be our Scream 7 predictions.
Maybe.
So
Yeah.
we'll get back to Scream. But this was fun. I'm happy that we were able to talk about Scream 3 for its 25th anniversary. Yeah. Good episode.
Yeah. Thanks for sticking around. I know this was a long episode. All you Scream fans out there, I know we have a lot that listen to the podcast.
Yes.
Thank you for supporting us. And look for us on social media at Never Split Up Pod. That's where we post our polls. You can vote in the Never Split Up poll. We just gave you our moments. So let us know who you agree with most, who you think was a dumber moment. And yeah, check out the Lodge episode and get ready
Please.
for Valentine's Day with us next week. We are covering The Loved Ones, and we have our special guest, Oriana Nichelle. So thank you to her for coming on. And until next time, we will see you later. This is the Never Split Up Podcast. Bye.